Good evening. I'm playing chairman tonight. Or vice chairman of vice. Basically, this meeting is called pursuant to provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act. Both adequate and electronic notice of this meeting has been provided by way of publication in the Hunterdon County Democrat and Progressive News newspapers on or about February 1, 2024 and January 30, 2024. In addition, notice of the meeting was posted at the Borough of Flemington Municipal Building located at 38 Park Ave and any handicapped accessible entrances there too. Posted on the municipal website, provided to the municipal clerk and distributed to all persons, if any, requesting copies of the same. The meeting is being recorded with both audio and video and may be rebroadcast. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to the issues that are relevant to what the court may legally consider in reaching a decision, and the form appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. Yeah, the roll call. Make sure I get my body.
We have some technical difficulties over there. The whole screen is black on that public view.
Let's do the flag salute, please. Mayor Carroll. What you think?
Mayor Carroll here. Councilwoman Pissarro here. Mr. Campion,
Here.
Ms. Giffen is excused. Mr. Hill,
Here.
Mr. Dashna,
Here.
Mr. Cook is excused. Ms. Weitzman,
Here.
Mr. Semino is excused. Ms. Swingle here. Mr. Eckel,
Here.
Mr. Show.
Here.
Ms. Kaczynski here. Mr. Clerico.
Here.
Ms. McManus
Here.
Mr. Trout.
Here.
Thank you.
What's up going on? Is this screen blank? Is the laptop working?
Yeah, the laptop is working. Is the connection to
The TV's on, obviously.
the TV? I don't think is on. It was on and then now it's not.
We're also not seeing the public view on Zoom right now too. I don't know if that means anything as well.
Yeah, that's what she's trying to
That's what
figure
she's
out.
trying
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe that's.
I did it. There you go. So, yeah. Don't hold it, don't take it out of my mind.
All right.
All right, so public comments.
Public comments? Wow.
Not be on the agenda matters.
Yeah.
Anyone on Zoom?
No, the only attendee is the council view.
Okay.
Moving right along.
Well, I'll introduce myself as I sit where to the left, Jim Hill, and I'm the assistant or vice chair for the planning board. And I watched that last meeting. It was interesting. And I guess what we'd like to do now is to their comments.
Yeah, I'm gonna tag team with the councilwoman, regarding, a change. Well, first of all, last night, the, governing body did approve, 3 always stops. One at Park Avenue and Line Street, and one at Stengel Avenue and Line Street, Stengel Road and Line Street. To help with, traffic calming and pedestrian safety, because we've had a number of near misses. Because of the excessive speeding and the sheer volume on Line Street. Our police are reporting that we have about 2,800 to 2,100 to 2,800 drivers a day on Line Street. And that there is speeding on that road in excess of double the speed limit on a daily basis all day long, especially during commuting hours. So, we had our, traffic engineer take a look at that, and we're also looking for, funding right now to put in a number of the articulating flashing, lights for pedestrians to be able to cross several other streets safely by pressing a button and let warning drivers to slow down. The third, freeway always stop that was approved was on Broad Street at Bloomfield Avenue. That will basically put an always stop at every single intersection all the way down Broad. Again, for traffic calming, and in anticipation of more traffic coming out of the hotel project when it opens up later this year. So, that one is because the neighbors asked for it, and Jay blessed it, that it would help. And again, it's also a preemptive. So those were approved last night. Those signs will probably be going up, I would predict probably by the end of the year. And then the police will be out giving wagging fingers for a little while before they get tickets. That is their style. So people won't get tickets right away until that, those always are up for a bit. And then we're watching to see where the push me pull you is, you know, where people try to find ways around the street, where if it puts more traffic possibly on the canal. We're hoping people who don't like stop signs are gonna start using Route 12 more who use our streets as throughways. And I will tell you that the police have written hundreds of tickets on my street in the last few months. Not one to a Flemington Borough resident was pulled over. It was all people who have Flemington Borough. So a lot of Pennsylvania commuters, a lot of Raritan Township, and a lot of West Hunterdon County. Not one Flemington person was speeding on that road. So, and it's just a matter of, you know, and I should also say that the ticket blitzes did not help traffic at all. Nobody seemed to care, nobody slowed down. And then the other big issue that's come up is the title and the wording of will serve letters from our water and sewer departments. The implication in that name has led us to have a number of issues with people wanting to develop in the borough, thinking that will serve means they're guaranteed the water. And, what?
As opposed to
a
reservation.
a temporary reservation. So we are officially changing the name. The form has already been changed, so we're gonna need the completion document changed to temporary reservation form. Because they don't, you know, make a commitment within 90 days, they lose that allocation under our ordinance. And we will be changing the ordinance to match the new name of the form, because the form is actually in the ordinance, because that's the way Old Flemington did this stuff, so you can never change anything unless you did it by ordinance.
30 days or?
I think it's 90.
90.
I think it's 90. I think that's what it is, and
You say commitment? Commitment meaning?
it's not, all it means is that we have the capacity. They're asking for the capacity, we have the capacity, but people, we have.
For 90 days, that's.
For 90 days.
Correct, that's correct. And what's happening is that, you know, we've had federal lawsuits, we've had, you know, screaming memes, you know, you told me I had the water, well, no, we never did, so. So, you know, this is preemptive of other applications that are, I don't know if they're in the planning board pipeline, but. Requests for will serve letters, and again, there's a concern that it's just a misnomer, it's just a bad name. And so we're gonna legally change it, but officially, arose by any other name, right? So we're calling it, going forward as of tonight, we're calling it the temporary reservation form. So, and please add to that, Councilwoman.
I think that pretty much nails it, other than the concern about, long-term approved and, provided both will serve forms and the impact of the developers when they, if you're not building it, basically, or it's extended.
Cause I mean, our water, I mean, we run a well,
So many
I mean,
wells.
a lot of the public doesn't know this, but we are on our private well system, we have our own utility. We don't use American water, it's a limited commodity, you know, we have, you know, 10 active wells, we're trying to put in 2 more, then we're done, we have no place else to put in more wells. So, you know, we wanna make sure that the people that are here, and the businesses that are here now, have always potable drinking water, which is more important than, you know, anything else. So, you know, we have a couple wells that go down, or a pollution spill or something like that, we're in trouble in this town. And, you know, so that's one of the reasons, is like about being more environmentally conscious about the fact that water is a commodity, a real commodity in this town, way more than it is, I think, for American Water, you know, because we're a small utility. So.
Thank you. Meeting's over. Great. Okay, historic preservation, any comments?
I have nothing. We haven't had a meeting since the last meeting.
Okay, professional reports?
Oh,
Okay.
can I go back for a second?
Sure.
Cause that just triggered this professional report thing. I don't know if this is appropriate, and one of you can tell me whether it is or not, but I really think that under professional reports, we should have a resolution compliance report. Whoever's responsible for doing that.
So what you're saying, status of resolution compliance for approved projects?
They're under construction. Yes,
So resolution compliance means that resolution compliance is required prior to pulling building permits for construction. So if what you want is, have they satisfied all the compliance conditions of the resolution to pull the permits? Or are you looking for status of projects under construction or
Yes.
both?
well, so I'll give an example. I had a resident complaint about trees coming off of an approved project that is currently under construction.
Okay.
I asked Bob about it. Bob said it's Beth's responsibility. I sent an email to Beth, maybe you didn't get it. I'm still waiting for an answer as to whether these trees, I mean, I know we approved cutting down some trees because of some of the ADA needs, but I'm not sure if they were those trees. So, you know, it's like that. We have another application up here for review, asking for, you know, some temporary whatever relief, a waiver relief. That project, I mean, last year I was asking Beth about visibility of certain things, and we're not getting like this, I'm not gonna use an adjective, that stupid sign on the circle, like where's that? I mean, it certainly isn't resolved,
So why
so.
don't we do this? Why don't we talk offline about how we can do that?
Mhm.
And should it be an attachment that's handed out to everybody, and then if they see it and have a question at that point in time on the agenda, we
I'm,
can ask
I'm
questions?
flexible, I just think that,
Yeah, we'll talk about
I
that.
think that the planning board needs to be getting some kind of,
Sure.
like, updates about where all of these projects are actively.
And obviously, anytime anybody has a question, they can ask us, but sometimes we lose track of what even is still out there. So if we have an ongoing list, we could certainly do that and.
Any other questions?
Yeah, just, this is for Bev. Eileen had sent us, last week, just noticed the state's preliminary development redevelopment plan, cross-acceptance process, is that, we're gonna have to do something about that. What does that look like?
So, yeah, okay, I'm sorry, I should have brought that up in the reports. Yeah, they've released their preliminary state plan. And if you click just very quickly, it's the state guidance document that's supposed to help direct state resources for infrastructure, funding, et cetera. And it provides a list of goals, objectives, and policies for development and redevelopment in the state, including open space preservation. The other thing it does is it provides a map of the entire state, and it puts every parcel in a planning area, one metropolitan, all the way down to 5, which is environmentally sensitive plans. They've released the preliminary state plan map with the preliminary state plan with all of the text, goals, and objectives. They haven't actually released the MAC yet, because that's part of a process that we're supposed to be working through with municipalities. So that's the background, but to answer the question, yes, it is something that we should talk about. I think the borough needs to decide how it wants to participate in who it wants to lead the process, whether this is gonna come from planning board or whether it's gonna come from the council, but it's gotta go through, well, you don't have to, but you should go through what's the cost acceptance process for providing comments on the plan as it pertains to planning.
Yeah, we should talk about that. Definitely that.
Just a note for professionals and so on, I listened to the last meeting in order to be ready for tonight, and I would ask everybody to make sure they speak up, because there were times when you had to go back and listen to it twice in order to hear what it is, so everybody make sure that, don't yell, but just make it good and loud.
If you're close to the microphones, that helps.
Right, that helps, yes. Approval of the minutes,
Second.
all in favor?
Yeah,
Aye.
I'll call the roll.
Oh, yeah, for minutes. Mr. Joshua?
Yes.
Ms. Swingle?
Yes.
Mayor Carroll?
Yes.
Ms. Fasaro?
Yes.
Mr. Campion?
Abstain.
Mr. Hill?
Abstain.
Ms. Weitzman?
Yes,
Mr. Apple?
Yes.
Okay, have the resolution for 110 Main Street.
That's done, council has approved it, he's here tonight, but unfortunately that clean version did not make it over to Eileen. So we'll have it on next week's agenda.
Okay, resolution for the National Pools and Spas.
Not what we had. And the people that are available to make a motion are Mr. Hill, Ms. Massaro, Mr. Campion, Ms. Weitzman, and
Ms.
Ms.
Swingle.
Swingle. Your motion is second.
I'll motion.
So we have Swingle and Weitzman.
Yeah.
We'll do Weitzman. All right, go ahead.
Ms. Swingle?
Yes.
Ms. Weitzman?
Yes,
Mr. Hill?
Yes,
Ms. Fasaro?
No.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Councilman, so you're not voting on the resolution? Okay. Even though you voted for approval? Is that everybody? Ready?
Yes.
And Brian was yes.
Brian is
Brian's
not here,
sorry.
and Mr. Cook is not here.
All right, perfect.
okay, resolution for Chick-fil-A.
I was, wasn't I for that?
No,
For the amendment?
for the amendment, you were not, no. The people eligible to vote for this would that are present is Mr. Hill, Mr. Campion, and Ms. Weitzman. Ms. Giffen and Mr. Semina were also. And it was only the people that voted on the original resolution and then were also present at the last meeting when we discussed the amendment.
Correct, and there's just one change to the resolution itself on the bottom of page one, the last paragraph. That letter should be, the date of the letter from Mr. Hale should be November 11, 2024, not 2023.
Okay,
I'll motion.
Motion, Weitzman. Mike, you
motion,
want a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Ms. Weitzman,
Yes,
Mr. Hill,
Yes,
Mr. Campion,
Yes.
thank you.
okay, compliance for the VSD Flemington Apartments.
Okay, so I thought I would, try to lead the board through this a bit. I submitted a memo from, December, no, just the other day that outlined the issue. And so BSD is also the Spice Factory development with the existing building. It has the, site plan approval includes a new building. This issue is about the existing building for which there's an additional story and improvements going on. The project was approved, as part of an amended site plan approval. And in the approval, or during the process, it was thought that a screen to screen the rooftop equipment would be unnecessary because they would be not visible from the surrounding area. But now the project is going up for construction. One of the things I noticed is that the equipment is visible, and I reached out to the applicant by way of their attorney, Mr. Gruenberg, raised the issue. And what they had indicated was, and you can correct me if I'm misspeaking, but what they had indicated was that if the planning board would like to have a screen applied to the roof of the roof of the building to screen the equipment, which would actually be consistent with the original site plan approval, they can add that. And they've actually provided a detail, which is included in the memo, that provides a roof plan. It shows you where the equipment is. It also provides a sample AC unit screen image, and it's essentially a brown screen. It's not solid, but it would it would largely obstruct the view of the equipment.
365, right?
Yes, it would go around the, it would go around. the
When
whole
you
roof.
read down Broad Church, you wouldn't see that.
Right.
And we have, you know, an
I'm
ordinance,
sorry,
isn't
just
it?
to interrupt that, it was a D variance, for
Yes.
consideration of this. So,
So does that mean we can't participate even though it's been approved?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
sorry, I just.
I thought we could approve it,
Yeah,
it's
thank
already
you. I can
approved,
mark that.
so.
No, because essentially you're just still participating in the application, same way that you couldn't participate in completeness prior to it's, once you're out, you're out.
Okay.
So,
I'll ask the question
okay.
because like, so if I'm driving on Church Street towards Route 31 and I've been looking at these things and wondering if didn't we want a screen there, I won't be able to see it, is the question.
Yeah, so instead of seeing these little equipment pieces pop up above the roof, you'll see a contiguous screen around the not around the building, but along the roof that will hide them.
It's, yeah, the discussion with the meeting was that
You couldn't see it.
if you couldn't, the testimony was that you wouldn't be able to see it, but if you could see it, that they would come back and ask that they would provide some sort of screening, and that's, I think, is that what I'm
Yeah,
understanding?
so, and I think coincidentally, this is similar to the Chick-fil-A issue that we just dealt with where they got in the field, realized that there was an issue. There it was, the canopy was too large, they pulled it back. We did the resolution that was just adopted 60 seconds ago, finding that the canopy change could be considered a field change. I think that this is very much an analogous situation in that the project is under construction, something unanticipated has occurred with the unanticipated issue being visibility of the rooftop equipment. And so if the board is inclined, I think that you can make a motion in favor of the rooftop screening and have that be included as part of their site plan approval. Of course, if the board finds that you're comfortable with the rooftop equipment, you can allow the project to proceed as well.
Can I ask a couple of questions?
Please.
Is the color that's on, I guess, the first page 4 of your memo, Beth, the color that's sort of represented there in that sample AC unit screen image, is that the color it's going to be, or is the color gonna be, how is the color gonna be relative to the rest of the building itself?
So my understanding is that that color is representative of what's being proposed. And so what I would say is the building is red brick with the upper stories being this grayish taupe color as well. And so I think obviously the brown screen, I think is gonna be darker in color than what you see there, but I think it's gonna be part of the general natural palette of browns and grays. If the board would rather see a different color, I don't know what the options are, but I would suggest that you speak up and have that
Do they have to
discussion.
submit a sample?
No, not a sample, just the detail.
Okay.
The picture.
The color that's represented on that, it's on, I guess, page 4 of your memo, is, I have no problems with,
Mhm.
because I think it does meet the palette of the rest of the existing building, the existing canopy, the stuff that's been added onto it. I just want to make sure that that's the color where we can get this, the representation.
I would, they submitted this detail, if the board is gonna pass a resolution supporting this field change, I would imagine that it would reference this detail so that if they install something blue, we can find it's inconsistent. with
This is
different-
what I'm saying.
Yeah, and we could say consistent with what's represented on the memo, or if there's a change, we'll work with the board planner and find something. Yeah, it's basically the exact same thing as we did with the field change on Chick-fil-A. But we just need a motion in a second to approve this as a field change. I'll put a resolution together, similar to what we just did, and we can add that condition along with the other conditions that, all the other conditions require resolution remain in effect.
On the
So,
next meeting?
I will try, yes.
Well, just asking them.
I'll put it on the agenda.
Put it on.
Listen, I-
Well, let me.
I saw the other one, so.
The board members that voted on the resolution for this application were, Mr. Cook, Dashna, Hill, Ms. Weitzman, and Semina, and actually Trent Levitt, but obviously, Mr. Cook and Mr. Semina, so just Jeff, Jim, and Hannah.
So I will move.
I'll second it.
Mr. Dashna,
Yes.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Ms. Weitzman,
Yes.
thank you.
There's a lot of action.
Yes. Next item is witness in public hearing, 119 House, LLC.
Evening, Mr. Vice Chairman, members of the board, Stephen Grunberg, Grunberg Law Office on behalf of the applicant, 100 House LLC. We're here tonight for a request for an amended site plan approval with variance relief.
And then you need to promote him as from panel.
They did.
And then you have to accept it so that you turn the camera on so the folks can see you.
Sorry, I missed the join as panelist notification.
Do you need it again?
Am I good? I think I'm good.
Okay. Good, and we just,
I keep muted, right?
Yes, you turn your camera on. Oh,
and you can share screen.
Who's? Oh, can move that back. a
You're
little
there.
bit. So we're here tonight for our amended application to relocate essentially the walk-in freezer. And towards the rear of the property. We'll explain the reasons why. You previously granted our relief to allow that walk-in freezer and indicated that it was a permitted accessory use in the zone. And we have the completeness report from Mr. Clerico, who recommended certain waivers and permanent waivers and temporary waivers. He indicated that we need to provide a written request for the waivers, which I supplied. And we would ask that you grant those waivers and bring the application complete. And we appreciate you giving us the opportunity to provide a notice of hearing this evening in advance with the hopes of being able to proceed forward with the public hearing tonight.
Bob, you good?
Yeah, the letter basically outlines the waivers they had as part of their application. I pointed out several others that they had not asked for and made some suggestions as to what I would recommend if they asked for them. And Steve did send a follow-up letter asking for them with that premise. So if you follow the format of the letter, it outlines what waivers, in what categories you can grant. If you want to read them all, but
I read the report, so I'm good, and I'll make the motion to.
Deem the application complete subject to the waivers outlined in Bob's completeness
Yes.
report of December.
What she said.
and it's amended in Steve.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, a second.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I didn't-
Motion second.
Thank you very much. Mayor Carroll,
Yeah.
Ms. Swingle,
Yes.
Councilwoman Pissarro,
Yes.
Mr. Campion,
Yes.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Mr. Dashna.
Yes.
Ms. Weitzman,
Yes.
Mr. Eckel,
Yes.
Mr. Show.
Yes,
Thank you.
So we provide proof of service and publication of the notice of hearing and ask that jurisdiction be found.
Everything was in order.
All of the mailings, yes, matched up with the list.
The board has jurisdiction to hear this application tonight based upon the completeness determination and the notice and publication provided.
Great. I have one witness. Sarah, if you could please come forward.
And just really quickly before we get there, we'll mark as exhibit A1, the application and all supporting documentation. We'll mark it PB1, the memorandum dated December 6th of the board planner, the memorandum dated December 6th of the board engineer, and the memorandum dated December 9th of the board traffic engineer, PB1, 2, and 3 respectively.
Thank you.
We'll swear you in as well as, our witnesses as well. For a testimony you're about to give this board the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do. Well, no, that was my wedding.
Do the board witnesses too, or is that?
Yeah. You guys. You guys stand for the rest of the meeting.
Sarah, you were a principal of Peaberry's?
Yes.
And we were here before the board previously in order to grant relief to allow for a walk-in freezer. And is it fair to say that an issue arose that prevented you from being able to have the freezer in the location that you originally was approved?
Correct.
And what was that reason?
Steve, could you swing it a little bit? I think her voice is very soft, but maybe make sure she's a little closer to it. Thank you.
Sure.
We needed to move the walk-in because we were no longer having seating upstairs due to an indoor sprinkler system that we want to avoid putting in.
So in other words, the kitchen area is going to be on the second floor instead of the first floor, and the seating area will be limited to the first floor,
Correct.
correct? And in doing that, we're going to relocate the walk-in freezer to the rear corner of the property, correct? And why don't I share my screen just to show that real quick? Yeah. If we can make it bigger. I can. So the original location of the walk-in freezer was on this side of the building, correct?
Yes.
And we decided that the better place to locate it would be in this rear corner, correct? And we're still proposing the landscaping to shield it, correct? But it does require rear yard setbacks because we're on a corner lot in those two areas, correct?
Yes.
The other improvements that we're requesting as part of this application was actually something that Mr. Cook had suggested that we do at the time, was to show the references to the signage that we wanted, correct?
Yes.
And we're proposing 3 wall-mounted signs that are located one on the front on Main Street, one on the side on Church, and one on the back of the building, correct?
Yes.
And one question that Ms. McManus asked is, what are the signs gonna look like? And I provided to the board in advance of the meeting, what I would probably ask the exhibit, whatever, next one, A2. And I will share my screen.
I thought A2 was the notice of hearing.
Ah, you're absolutely right. A2 notice, this is the eighth grade.
Oh, and I gotta share it in a different way, hold on. See, I was get 2 copies. That's the pretty T-Berry's Tea Room logo, that's gonna be the sign,
Yes.
and what will the 3 signs consist of?
They're wooden and the background is neutral tan with the teal and the cranberry.
Okay, and they're gonna be in the
They're
sizes,
oval.
oval signs, just like this, correct?
Yes.
And they'll be the size as depicted on the plans on both, all the sides. The board professionals had some comments. No, let me go back, actually. Go back to the plan. When we talked about the original location of the walk-in freezer, we were going to remove some pavement here and remove a parking space. We're not gonna do that now, correct? We're not gonna,
We would like to not.
right, so we would like to keep 3 parking spaces over here where they're located. And the 7 parking spaces on this side, correct? And the board professionals had some comments in their reports, and I'll address Mr. Clerico's first. Is December 6, 2024 correspondence. He suggested eliminating the parking space in the southeast corner and restoring the surface as landscaped area and restore the unused paved surface in the southwest corner of the lot as a landscaped area. We prefer not to do that, correct? We want to leave the parking lot the way it is
Yes.
and be able to just restripe it in order to be able to maximize the number of parking spaces
Yeah,
that could.
as much parking as we can
Yeah.
possibly get.
We don't need relief for the parking because there's an ordinance that allows for off-street parking, but we want to keep those 10 spaces as much as possible, correct?
Would you like to
And
discuss these as we go along or wait for?
do you,
So basically what's happening is he's going through the comments of each of the board professionals' reports. We're on the engineering, and typically what we would do is conditions of approval is say the applicant has agreed to comply with all the conditions. But for if there are certain ones that they have issues with. So this is the first one we've identified that they do not want to comply with. The question is, does the board want to discuss them as they go? Or you want to wait till the end? It's probably easier to keep track if we discuss them as you go, and then we can have dialogue unless you'd like to present it individually.
no, that's fine.
I think we ought to do it as we go.
Yeah, the only thing I was gonna add to that, and from my notes of the original meeting, the elimination of that space was, I believe, a requirement of the board, and I forget who raised the issue, but somebody raised the issue about the accessibility of that particular space. And also pointed out that part of that space is actually the public right of way. I was just bringing back up that was an issue that we decided as part of the original plan. Obviously, they only have one space there originally, because the other space was gonna be occupied by the freezer unit. That's not there anymore. They would like to preserve the 3 spaces. I'm just bringing up the fact that the one closest to the street was a recommendation to be eliminated with prior approval. You want to still do that, or you do not?
Was the issue that it was in the public right away, or was the issue?
I'm not sure the issue with the public right of way came up. If I
Is that an
recall,
issue, Bob?
It came up.
it did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that a real issue? I mean, like a real issue?
It's an existing, parking is a premium in town, and I can see, parking, but if I recall correctly, the question that was raised, and maybe it was Todd, I'm not sure who raised the question about the ability of vehicles to really maneuver in and out of that space. Kind of question the viability of the space. I mean, it's obviously there.
Can I suggest that maybe we ask the applicant to sign it as compact cars only?
Or employee spaces.
Or employee space, one or the other, compact cars only?
Yeah.
Cause I think they're having all the employees park off site.
Or motorcycles.
Compact cars and motorcycles.
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm-
No.
So, yeah, I mean, that would solve the problem of somebody, you know.
Yeah, we're,
I only raised it because it came up here.
I understand.
yeah, I mean, that space and that parking layout's been there for years.
Years.
I think the reason why we were able to eliminate it last time is because that's where we were putting the cooler and we needed to do landscaping and screening in that area. So it's like, okay, we'll get rid of that space. But if we don't have to get rid of the space, we'd like to keep the 10, 7 and 3.
I'm okay with leaving the waiver and having them sign in compact cars and motorcycles only. And if it was the
That's
employees
fine.
park, then
Is it, I mean, it's not even a waiver or anything, right? This is
No.
this is a condition,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, we're
There's
just
no
going-
parking minimum, we're just,
Going through comments in the professional.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's not
again,
a-
this is a little atypical because they were just here, they got the approval, so we're just making some minor changes. Yes.
So we could have a sign there, compact cars or something like that. Okay. The next is, C1 is addressed. C2 is all of the existing sidewalks along Church Street frontage be reconstructed. However, we put a note that it say will be repaired as needed. I'm not sure whether the whole frontage of Church Street sidewalk needs to be repaired. We're agreeing to do it as needed per Mr. Clerico's recommendation, but to do the whole sidewalk seems excessive along Church Street when we're not really doing any improvements there.
Yeah, but again, it wasn't reinventing the wheel, I was just repeating comments that were from the original. When they were here before, that was the condition that was imposed originally. So I'm just, raising that note, some of the items we had raised originally have been, I noted on here, have been addressed. Some were not, at this point, the ones that we.
So we would like to just keep it as repair as needed, and we'll work with Mr. Clerico as to what portions of the sidewalk need to be repaired and what portions can remain.
That's Victorian blue slab, is that what that is, blue slab? The old, original sidewalk?
It's been a while since I looked at it.
It's been a while since I've walked on my side of the street. So
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't remember if it's blue stone. Mike Campion, do you know if that's blue stone? Victorian on Church?
What's that, Mayor? I'm sorry.
Is the sidewalk over by T3s on Church, is that still blue stone, Victorian blue stone? Do you know?
You're breaking up.
Do you know, is that better? Do you
Yeah,
know
that's better.
what the sidewalk composition is? Is it blue stone over on
No.
Church? T-Bears?
Regular concrete.
It's concrete now, okay.
Yes.
So, looks like it's overhead, looks like it's regular. Yeah. That is.
So we'll work with Mr. Clerico as to replacing whatever portions need to be replaced, but we don't just want a blanket note saying that we're gonna replace the whole this whole sidewalk.
But my recollection was there was a lot of cracked slabs and whatnot.
That was my question, Bob, is it really?
That was my recollection. There was a lot of cracked sidewalk and it just, the sidewalk along Main Street looked in relatively good
Is
shape.
there any rope buckling or any safety issues with it?
I'm saying, the original note said they would do some repairs. I looked at it, it looked like it was a lot of it would have to be repaired and might just be just as easy to replace it, but again, however you want to handle it.
This is really the distinction here is whether you make us do the entire sidewalk as a condition right now, or whether we agree to work with Mr. Clerico to replace those portions that need to be replaced, which may be the whole thing. He may tell us, you know what, Steve, the whole thing needs to be replaced. But let's have that flexibility in the condition.
You might also find out that just doing piecemeal repair might be more expensive than just taking it out of the place.
It's true too. And then we might want to, but I just don't want that mandate. You have to replace a whole street side full of sidewalk.
So is anybody on court have issue with just letting them take care of it?
No.
Okay. The next 2B is the parking issue, so I think we've addressed that. The next is curbing detail, and you're correct, we will do that, the Belgian block curbing we will do. Number 3, landscaping lighting was deferred to Ms. McManus. I can indicate to her that she suggested that the weeping cherry be replaced with either a flowering dogwood or an eastern redbud, which we will do. And I don't know if there's other landscape, we'll get to your report, but I remembered that. The front yard comment was addressed. We will again add the number 5, the Belgian block, and I provided the water and sewer approval that I received this afternoon. I can give that to Mr. Clerico. But we already paid our connection fees, for water and sewer. I emailed it this afternoon. The Hunterdon County Planning Board, it's not on the county's road and it isn't required. So we don't have to submit the Hunterdon County Planning Board on this application. And that's it for Mr. Clerico's report. Ms. McManus's report, I pulled up the wrong one. In terms of signage, the signage will be exterior limited, lighted by an exterior lighting, correct? It won't be backlit signs.
Can we, should there be an approval, can we have an update to the plans that depicts the proposed lighting, just so we can confirm it's downward facing and the type of, the light bulb itself that's being proposed?
We can do that, right? Give a detail for the lighting.
Is it going to be mounted on the building or on the ground? The
Lighting on the building or on the ground.
At our last location, we had it on the building.
They call it sort of a gooseneck where it shines down on the light or on the
These are
sign.
kind of like coming from the sides.
Okay. I think what's most important is that the light fixture looks nice, consistent with the style of the building, and also that it's not creating glare. What we don't want is folks to walk by the building on Church or Main, or for any of the neighbors to be staring at the light bulb itself. We just want them to see the illuminated sign.
Yeah, right.
So you'll be able to show that in a detail.
Yeah,
So
that's what I was asking.
We'll provide a light for the signs to Ms. McManus' satisfaction. We already talked about the flowering dogwood or eastern redbud. Painting the walk-in cooler, I don't think that's necessary anymore since, as Ms. McManus pointed out, it's already in the rear of the lot. It's screened by the landscaping and it's already a tan color, correct?
Correct.
So I don't think it's.
I totally agree. That's shaking her, she agrees too.
It seems unnecessary at this point.
And I think that's it. And in terms of the variances, we're requesting it based upon a hardship analysis because the only place really to functionally put this in relationship to the existing building and its location on the lot is in that rear corner where it makes sense. And it's really a de minimis type of variance under these type of circumstances for this accessory structure. And the sign variances can be granted because it gives more appropriate aesthetic signage for this corner lot. And having the number of signs in the area of the sign is appropriate for this type of use on a corner lot. It's not, it identifies the site as a type of retail instead of office use where people can actually go.
I think for your signs, none of the signs exceed 50 square feet, which is the maximum requirement. The relief necessary is for the third facade sign. They've got one on Main, one on Church, and then one facing the parking lot. And so I think the board can consider the need for signage and consider the fact that there are really three faces on this building in the sense that people are parking at the rear as opposed to on the street or necessarily always coming in from Main Street or the primary entrance to the site. They're gonna be parking at the window.
Can I ask you a question on just because we're talking about a cooler and this, I don't know if this came up at the prior approval or not. You have no concerns about granting relief for the setback because of any issue of noise from the unit to the adjacent property, right?
I don't think that these are particularly loud equipment. It is closer to the property line, but it's closer to the rear property line as opposed to one of the parking spaces still along Church Street, but adjacent to the neighboring building. Instead, it's at the back corner where it's got some distance to surrounding buildings, in addition to the fact that I don't think it's a particularly loud feature, but also I would note that the applicant is proposing plantings on two sides, the side facing and the side facing the rear, and that will provide it'll provide some noise mitigation as well, just to further cut it down.
Just-
cut down the noise.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to, thank you.
Is there any auxiliary generation during power outage for it, or is there?
It's a generator.
Yes, we will have it on generator.
Yeah.
Just don't want your refrigerators is not cool.
Yeah, there is a proposed generator showed on the detail.
Okay, thank you.
On the plans. That's all the testimony that we have.
Okay, does the board have any more questions for the professionals or for Steve?
Let's make sure we open the questions.
To the public, yeah.
Yeah, and then we'll do public comment as well.
Okay, we'll now open it up for any comments from the public about the plan.
Questions? for our
Questions?
children?
Could you stop sharing, Steve, so that
I'm sorry.
folks online?
Are there anybody online?
No other
No.
attendees are on.
Not hearing any comments?
Comments from the public, the application? Do you want some?
Summation is, this is a great existing business in the borough of Flemington that is excited to reopen in a new location, and we're really hoping that you move us along so we can get them open.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so typically we'll make a motion, to either approve or deny the application so that we can have a discussion. The application would be for amended site plan and C2 variance relief for the third sign as well as the variances outlined in Ms. McManus's report. I would suggest that there is a motion to approve, that there be conditions attached to it in addition to our standard conditions. The The general condition would be that all prior conditions of approval would remain except as amended by this approval. The applicant agrees to comply with all comments within the board engineer's report, except for the comments with regard to the parking space removal. The applicant does agree, however, to sign that parking space in the front for compact cars or motorcycles only. And also, with the exception of item 2A in the report, however, the applicant will agree to work with the board engineer to address whatever portions of the sidewalk that need to be reconstructed. And as opposed to, the recommendation, which was to replace the entirety of the sidewalk. The applicant also noted that no Hudson County planning board approval was required.
400, let's say.
That's true. That's.
They do not have jurisdiction. I'm not going there, let me tell you.
And, in addition, all comments within the board planners approach to comply with, except for the paving of the floor, because that's no longer necessary based on the location. And the applicant agrees to update the plans depicting the proposed lighting detail of the signage to the satisfaction of the board.
And they check motion.
Temporary waivers?
It's, we did that during completeness.
No, they're temporary waivers, they have to be they're
Memorialized.
temporary, they're not permanent.
Oh, yes, correct.
I make the motion to approve.
Second.
No discussion?
Oh.
A little discussion?
We gotta-
You have to have a motion in a second.
Oh, yeah, sorry, you're right.
Okay, any discussion?
He's gone back to vacation.
I'll just, so it's on the record, so that Kara's happy, this is actually an improvement over the prior approval, because the location of the walk-in, it's actually in the rear of the property, which I think is better than being stuck
Agreed.
on Church Street. The setback relief is understandable, given the nature of where it is and what we're talking about, and it's not really a burden, the signage. The third sign, as Beth has said, is because of a third facade of where folks are entering the building. It really won't be impactful for the viewscape of Main or Church Street, and so I see.
And I just want to add to that, should the next applicant get approved for a major subdivision, there's gonna be new accesses on Church Street for a lot more traffic. So having that rear sign, I think, is important so people can see it when they, and as well as just the retail nature of that side of the building going down to Central Avenue. I think having that rear sign is a really good idea to maximize their visibility, because it is creating an anchor to the business district.
Yeah.
At that traffic light.
Other comment?
You went online?
No comments from online? She all knows.
Alright, so that motion was Mayor, second was
Smith.
Jeff, or-
No, sir.
Mayor Carroll,
Yes.
Ms. Swingle,
Yes.
Councilwoman Pissarro,
Yes.
Mr. Campion,
Yes.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Mr. Dashna.
Yes.
Ms. Weitzman,
Yes.
Mr. Eckel,
Yes.
Mr. Show.
Us.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Next public hearing is
Never know.
We had started.
Oh, yeah, we didn't do.
We got-
as it's their
Right,
jurisdiction.
yes, it's got,
Well, while Mr. Fucci is setting up, good evening, everyone. My name is Donald. Happy to welcome you to Holiday.
Could you grab, move the microphone a little closer to him?
Yes, Donald Pepe with the law firm of Springsteen Hollenbeck on behalf of the applicant. I believe we did conclude with completeness, but we did have a jurisdictional issue that came up. There was what I'll characterize as essentially grading work that implicated lots 29, 32, and 72.01 as shown on the plans. 29 had already been part of our original notice, which we actually found out when we went back and double checked. We did provide new notice for lots 32 and 72.01. The affidavits were provided. I'd submit that the board does have jurisdiction now. With respect to the notices that had previously been given prior to the last hearing, those, it was announced at that meeting that this application would be carried to this meeting, so that notice was preserved as to the balance of the lots. The newspaper notice was also preserved.
You have copies of the.
Yes, I do.
So the applicant before you this evening is HBC Liberty Village Urban Renewal LLC. We're here for preliminary and final site plan approval and subdivision approval with some variances. The project is subject to the Liberty Village Phase 1 redevelopment plan, which was rather recently adopted by the city council, by the borough council. The project proposes a number of townhomes and preservation of some existing structures. Mr. Pucci will go into far greater detail with respect to that. The project will be providing, under the redevelopment agreement with the borough, land for expansion of the water treatment facility, an infrastructure donation, remediation of contamination at the existing site. There is a comprehensive redeveloper agreement that was negotiated between the borough and the redeveloper. Part of that process was a consistency review where we had previously submitted the proposals, the proposed development for this project to the council and to some of this board's professionals for review, and were ultimately designated to be consistent with the redevelopment plan. There are a number of variances that are required, but most of which are associated with pre-existing structures that are going to be maintained. Other than a variance for parking, which in one small instance, where 10-foot separation from that building is required, we're only providing 7, and that's in one location, I believe, or perhaps 2. We are compliant with respect to the principal plan. With respect to the One Church Street building and the Allies building is a building that's going to be dedicated to the borough. There are a number of variances required because although those buildings are now part of the new plan, they don't comply with the various bulk and setback requirements. I'll list them out very briefly just so that they're on the record. In the One Church Street lot, there's a minimum lot area of 65,000 square feet. That lot is 4,089 square feet. A variance is required. Lot width required is 150. 50 is existing. Lot depth is 200. 108 is existing. Front yard is 35 required, 19.4 existing. Side yard is 15 required, 9 existing. Rear yard is 15 required, 9 existing. With respect to the Allies lot, again, 65,000 is the minimum lot area. The Allies building is 10,633 square feet as it sits today. Lot width again is 150, existing lot is 100. Lot depth is 200, existing lot is 108. Front yard requirement is 35, existing is 22.9. Side yard required is 15, existing is 9. Rear yard required is 50, existing is 10.1. That's the entire list of the variances that are required. So again, only one with respect to parking.
separation from buildings on the principal development. Otherwise, it's, in my opinion, 100% compliant with the redevelopment plan. Mr. Pucci will go into more detail. I have 5 witnesses, some of whom are here to answer questions from the boards, may not be necessary, but we have our civil engineer, we have our landscape architect. We have 2 architects for the 2 different proposed residential products. And we have our traffic consultant. So without any further ado,
Eileen, can you come up with the balance?
Yep, I'm just gonna go through a couple of housekeeping items first. We'll mark as we do as A1, the application and supporting documentation submitted so far. A2 would be the notice and publication, including that most recently submitted for tonight's hearing. We will mark as PB1, the Covington Historic Preservation Commission memo dated April 23, 2024. PB2 will be the Covington Borough Fire Safety Letter dated September 17, 2024. PB3 will be Mr. Troutman, Traffic Engineers memo dated November 22nd, 2024. PB4 will be Ms. McManus's memo dated November 24, 2024. Sorry, I'll add an order there. PB5 will be Mr. Clerico's report dated November 23rd, 2024. And then the last one, if I didn't miss any, is an undated memo from the Environmental Commission. It's a 3-page memo consisting of 4 items. That will be PB6.
I'm sorry, Ms. Kaczynski, what did you have the borough fire safety memo?
Fire safety is PB2, and that's the September 17th.
Thank you.
Oh, you know what? And let's do PB7. There was an updated HPC letter. Updated HPC memo dated October 6, 2024.
You got the environmental commission, right?
Yeah,
You say that.
yeah, it should run to, I don't know what. Yeah. That'll be PB7. Yes, sorry. Want to go over any minutes?
Yeah, sure.
Mr. Testimony about to give this board the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Yes.
For a professional, you may sworn.
Mr. Pucci, could you share your credentials to the board?
I'm a licensed professional engineer and a licensed planner in New Jersey. I've been licensed since the late 80s or so about 35 years or so. I have appeared before planning boards, zoning boards, board of combined land use boards, Superior Court.
Excuse me, can you please speak up?
Okay, so backing up, I'm a licensed professional engineer and professional planner in New Jersey. I've been licensed for about 35 years. I've appeared before planning boards, zoning boards, combined land use boards, Superior Court throughout the state. Been qualified before many boards, including this board, just for a completeness issue about a month ago. I prepared literally probably hundreds of site plans and subdivisions for residential, commercial, industrial development over the last 45 years, where I've been employed at what is now known as CPL Partnership, where I am the senior managing member of that firm. And
Mr. Pucci, your license is current.
yes, it is.
Vice Chair, I'd ask you to accept him as a professional civil engineer and planner.
Yes.
Anybody have any questions?
Any questions about that? You believe it?
He's sworn, so yeah.
So just from a perspective, I mean, the review letters in this instance were fairly extensive. I don't intend to go through them point by point. What I do intend to do is try and point out, as with the last application, those areas where we aren't blanketly agreeing to comply. It may warrant some discussion.
leaving the letters for later.
Get close to Mr. Pucci.
Pardon?
Or they can't hear us. Come on.
All right, so again, leaving the letters for later, just sharing my screen now. Okay, so here's the project. This has been before the advisory committee, and it's been shown to the administration over the last couple of years as we've evolved to what is now the Liberty Village redevelopment, which consists of 111 townhomes and 2 veterans buildings. Those 2 veterans buildings are located west of Stangle Road, so off to the left of Stangle Road. And for orientation purposes, you can see the Route 12 on the bottom. Stangle Road, you can see labeled, it kind of curves up, and we are showing it being realigned to go straight through what was once the Polo Building and in front of what was once the this Timberland Building. And we'll continue on to its current alignment between Lone Eagle Brewery here to the left, the distillery to the right, and then up towards the top, the church is off to the right and up top at Main, which the prior application just discussed. The 2 veterans buildings are affordable housing units, 6 units per building. And of the 111 townhomes that are proposed, 7 will be affordable. So the total is 19 affordable housing units, or 15% of the total number of units in the project for this phase. The project will basically eliminate everything that exists, like the right-hand side of this, all the red on the right side of the screen between Brown Street to the right, you have Church up top, Route 12 to the bottom, and the Stangle Road right of way, as well as the railroad right of way to the left. That's where the current mall sits. It's all vacant. You've seen it basically emptied out. I believe demolition is imminent, but waiting for certain procedural things such as tonight. The entire site's fenced in right now, so you cannot get in there, but the former mall that was there is obviously going to be completely demolished, including all the infrastructure within that area. And by infrastructure, I'm talking about all the pavement, all the buildings, all the utilities, all sewer, all water, any gas or electric, everything is gone in there, and it's a total rebuild of that side. The left side right now, where you see this yellow extension of Forge Road connecting down to the parking lot, that is where we intend to fill some of the parking lot. As you may know, Walnut Brook, which traverses through Raritan to your west, and comes down, clips the corner of our property and goes underneath Route 12. That has a floodplain associated with it, and FEMA has designated basically the entire parking lot all the way up to just about the train tracks in a flood hazard area. We have met with DEP over the last several years, prepared an entire set of plans, site plans that you see here. DEP has approved these site plans, and as part of the flood hazard permit that was granted, the fill that is associated with the Forge Road extension here and the little bit of Stangle Road up towards the top, that fill to raise that area, which is currently in the floodplain, up to and out of the floodplain, is being compensated for by what we're calling this compensatory flood storage excavation out to the west end. DEP has reviewed all the calculations prepared by myself and partner firms and issued a flood hazard area individual permit for this work, including the fill and for all the residential project, including review of the stormwater management regulations. And that was an issue that was covered last hearing about 2 weeks ago when talking about certain elements of stormwater rules.
Right, while you're, because of the public and so on like this, make sure that you make use of the plan to show some of the areas you're talking about, so that people out there understand where it is on the plan.
Okay, so at the very left end where I'm circling now, you see a red line around this light green.
Right.
That is what we're calling the compensatory flood storage excavation. What it is there's currently a parking lot there right now. And we are removing that part of the parking lot, digging down and just putting vegetation, grass and some vegetation on the perimeter. That will be area where the floodwaters of Walnut Brook can fill instead of filling all the way up to Forge Road. And in fact, DEP has approved that a balance of fill. You fill someplace else, you excavate, and the two balance one another out. As for the stormwater management of the project, we have a number of bioretention systems located on the east side, and the east side is where the current mall is. They are some small scale bioretention systems, two large scale ones. One of those being what we're calling the Brown Street bioretention system, which is right here. The project has a little bit of frontage on Brown Street. That portion of the frontage on Brown Street will not be developed for the project. But what will actually happen is there's a 7,500 square foot park being donated to the borough. And the landscape architect can show you the details of that particular park and amenities therein. Behind that, we're creating the Brown Street bioretention system. That happens to be what DEP will call a large scale bioretention system. That's simply because the area contributing flow to that basin is too large to be considered a small one. The area going to that basin has nothing to do with the project. It is all the existing residential development along Brown, Grant, and to the east. And that all contributes to a low point in Brown Street that currently floods. Just north of where Grant Avenue is, there's a low point in the road, and as you probably all very well know, and I'm sure Mr. Campion knows very well, when there's a rainfall event, even a minor one, that area floods and he gets the phone calls. So we are constructing this basin to help alleviate that flooding problem. There is one other large-scale basin, which is down at Route 12, and that is shown here at the bottom. The existing driveway will be maintained, and just to the right of that, we're going to create this large-scale bioretention basin. That happens to take some flow from the project site, as well as the backyards of a number of homes along Brown Street. So those two particular basins not only handle, in the case of the Route 12 one, some on-site flow, but also off-site flow to help alleviate flooding problems in the borough. The rest of the bioretention systems on the east side are all small scale, and they're used to not only treat the impervious surface that is going to be proposed, impervious surface simply being the pavement of where vehicles can either drive or park, but then they will all be treated and be cleaned in those bioretention systems, and then they will also function in larger storms to attenuate peak flow. Everything east of Brown Street right now contributes flow underneath Stangle Road. There's a pipe that goes underneath, actually goes right underneath the ticketing booth for Kane's Railroad there. And that particular pipe that goes under there is grotesquely undersized. Like it can handle maybe 1/7 or 1/8 of the actual flow that gets there. So we are proposing to upgrade that pipe and therefore alleviate another bottleneck in flow and get that water down to the existing. There's an on-site, basically it's off-site to us for now, tributary behind the properties that front on Route 12, and it flows down and through some of our property as you get closer to, I think it's Mary Jane, or Jane Smith Lane, which is the driveway that comes from Route 12 up to your existing well building. So that flow to that particular low point in Route 12, in taking all the flow from the east side, will be alleviated through our basins on the east side so that we reduce the peak flow coming off of the project. On the west side, we have one retention system along the north side of Forge Road that is there to treat our new, again, proposed motor vehicle surface. And we are actually fortunate in that most of the site today, as you've seen, it's either parking lot on the west or the mall on the right, so it's virtually all impervious, and there's going to be quite a bit of green space, as you can see on this map, scattered throughout the residential community that we're proposing. So the reduction in impervious surface helps us in that we do meet all of the required DEP reductions in peak flow. We also meet all of the requirements for water quality treatment and green infrastructure by the use of these particular devices. And groundwater recharge, we actually don't have to meet any recharge deficit because we're proposing actually an increase of about 40%, I believe, of the current recharge that exists. Our proposed post-development recharge is about 40% higher than what happens. Again, since it's all impervious today. From a sanitary sewer perspective, The borough currently has a main up in Church Street that flows to the east. And there is a main down along Route 12, is somewhat in the right of way of Route 12. That basically starts pretty much at our southeast corner and flows westward along Route 12. And I had a meeting actually at this table right here a week ago, 5 days ago, with your sewer and water departments to discuss their initial reviews of our project. And they have come up with some very good suggestions that we will incorporate. One being, there's a piece of pipe that it exists, our tie-in point is at our southwest corner along Route 12 on the east track. There's their existing pipe that continues eastward. It's not needed, so they can eliminate that from one of their capital improvement projects and save some funding there. There was a request for us to look at rerouting the proposed sewer on the west side. Right now, there's an existing line that flows from the back of, I guess it's Regina Road, which flows, that drives between the brewery and the lower end of the retail building above the brewery. And it serves what was 3, I believe is now 2 homes along Regina Road. That sewer flows southward through this off-site lot and through our lot and continues on to the southwest. And that flow would be underneath one of our proposed bioretention systems and flow between 2 of our proposed buildings. And we've been asked to reroute that around the bioretention. We have no problem with that. We will take that pipe and move it around and make the minor modifications to our on-site collection system to accommodate that request. From a water perspective, there are 4 connections that we propose to the borough system. Right here to the left of our Forge Road projection of homes, and you have this yellow extension of Forge Road, there is a little gap, a triangular lot that we don't own, that's actually a borough well building. And part of our application is this orange area where we're donating, I believe it's 3,600 or something like that square feet to the borough for the expansion of their well building in the future to accommodate their future needs. That they have a water main that traverses east to west just above the property line of the well building in our property and then runs northward along the property line between our property and the parking lot property here and the offsite lot that is behind the brewery. We are going to tap into the borough line there. We are also going to tap into the borough line up at Church Street and down at Route 12 with what we're doing with the extension of Central Station. And then there's a 4th connection point that we are showing right now at the north end of our property along Stangle Road. And I learned from Josh Parks, your water supervisor, that that particular line exists a little bit further north. The mapping is not correct. So we will just extend our pipe within the Stangle Road right away and connect to the existing line. They'll just require a little bit of offsite trenching within the right of way. One of the features of what we're doing is we're going to put some of this jack bore or run a pipe underneath the railroad. So right in this location here where Forge Road crosses, we're going to have a connection of a water main between the left side and the right side, sort of looping and providing additional support to the existing infrastructure that you have out here. Now, when I talk about Central Station, I just mentioned we're going to tie in the water at the top and the bottom. One of the things that we are doing is extending Central Station, which now exists north of Church. And the original plan that we started with the advisory committee a year or 2 ago, easily, kind of went straight up and connected opposite the existing connection right up here at Church. However, during that review and the involvement of the project, what Mr. Pepe just described as the One Church Street building, and we call it One Church, and I've seen reference to it as 3 Church, but it is the existing white building that is right here opposite Central Station on Church on the south side. It was asked that that building be preserved. So we have an offset intersection whereby Central Station now comes northward and deviates to the left a little bit and then comes up. And it does not tie in directly opposite the existing Central Station on north of Church. That's simply to accommodate the request of the borough to maintain and preserve the One Church Street building. Just to the right of that on this exhibit I'm looking at, the concept plan here, you see another brown building that's called the existing structure to be donated to the borough. That is the Allies building that Mr. Pepe also described. Now, these two lots, or these two buildings are going to have lots around them. And as he mentioned, they are grossly undersized for the ordinance requirements of the project because they are little offshoots of donation to the borough. They're not part of our proposed development, but by creating a small lot around them to be able to effectuate the donation, they are undersized lots. And I'll go through the specifics in greater detail with a better picture if the board would like, but the numbers that Mr. Pepe just read to you 5-10 minutes ago are in fact correct. There are bulk violations required for front, side, rear setback areas, widths, etc. The one variance that does come about as a result of this concept plan deals with an ordinance requirement in the redevelopment plan that says you cannot have any parking within 10 feet of a residential building, with the exception of obviously a driveway. There are 5 locations actually in this plan, and I will just blow it up to kind of easier to see where those violations of less than 10 feet occur, and they are entirely 100% consistent with the concept plan that was ultimately approved by the Liberty Village Advisory Committee, allowing us to proceed to these hearings. So they occur right here. There are 3 parking spaces along the north side of Pullman Way and 2 on the south side. This little G in here, that's just an indication that's where we have a violation, because the corner of the parking spot in the back is about 7 feet or so. 7 is the smallest. There is some as large as 8.5, but they are less than 10 feet from the residential units. There are 2 more down here at Forge Road, again, where you have some parking between the units, basically visitor overflow parking. And there is a 5th location along the east side of Central Station, right here, just opposite where Forge Road and Pullman tie into Central Station. On the east side, we have 2 more parking spaces, again, overflow or visitor parking, but they are within 10 feet of the residential unit. It's not inconsistent with what you see with a car parked in front of a driveway, but it is actually out here, less than 10 feet. So that is, in fact, variance.
Wait, just for the record, really quickly, this plan, I know it's the concept plan, could you just give us the title? Is there a sheet number?
There is no sheet number. This is the color exhibit that's been used with the, just the word concept plan works. Or color
Mr.
concept.
Pucci, this is consistent with the site plan set that you submitted.
Yes, we have developed our site plan based upon this plan. They are in fact one and the same. The site plan, of course, is black and white, and I don't know whether or not you're.
Yeah, was the colored one submitted to the board, otherwise we'll just mark it. As a great. Mark it as exhibit A.
Yeah, I don't believe it has been submitted.
The market is exhibit A, create a colorized version of the CPL plan labeled concept plan. The eighth grade.
I guess Zoom does not transfer my screens quickly, so I just went to stop sharing the color concept plan, and what I'm showing now is the actual full site plan set, which was submitted as part of this application.
Yeah.
And
just as you go through, when you're talking about each page, just so we know for the record, just let us know you're on.
yes, I'm just kind of going through now. This right now is sheet 4 of the site plan set. This is the first of the demolition, existing conditions and demolition plan views of the project. And you can see that we have crosshatched all of the mall property here, all of the buildings, all the pavement, etc. That crosshatch is shown in a key down at the bottom of the plan. And a note that indicates it's all going. However, there is a blow up that we had discussed with Mr. Clerico, showing that in fact, the 2 buildings that I referenced before, the One Church Street building right here and the Allies building right here, those are existing buildings that are going to be preserved. So that is why there's this blow up showing that they are not being demolished. Moving further into, this is now just a dimension plan. This is known as sheet 7. It's the first of the dimension plans in the site plan set. And it represents the upper right piece of the project. This shows you how our extension of Central Way actually curves to the left and right again and will touch Church Street, not directly opposite Central Ave where it exists today. But we couldn't do that because then we would be taking out the building that we were asked to preserve. One thing that we are doing, and I will just blow up this particular dimension plan of
What do you do with that, Mr. Pucci? That was actually one of the questions that was raised in the borough's traffic review report.
well, it was
Explain why those roads.
why the roads are not offset, because there is a standard that requires that you have an offset, I believe it's a minimum of 100 feet between intersections on opposite sides of the street. And we do not have that here. However, our belief is that this could be considered safe because we don't have a heavy through traffic cross movement. Anyone going west on Church Street is not gonna keep going because the road ends. It stops right there. So you're either gonna turn right on Central Station and go northward, or you're gonna turn left onto our new Central Station and go southward. So although the standard is there for a good reason, you don't wanna have people pulling out of one side and the other, making cross movements and conflicting traffic. It's not truly the situation here because of the fact that it's a dead end terminus immediately west of our extension. We're providing, or we're graphically depicting 3 parking spaces for this one retail building that is just north of Church, but the road ends right there. One of the things I was going to point out as well was in the dedication of, for example, the one Church Street building, which currently has no parking spaces, and the Allies building, which currently has a total of 12 parking spaces, we're actually providing parking to be dedicated to those uses. We have straddling the common property line between our 2 new proposed lots, 1 handicap space for each of those buildings. They don't have any currently. And then we're proposing that we have 7 parking spaces on the west side of Central Station and a total of 9 on the east side. 8 of those on the east side, this 8 here, and the 7 on the west side are 15 total, plus the 1 that we're proposing up on Church. Those will all be for the Allies building. So Church, Allies, which currently has 12 parking spaces, will wind up with a total of 16, including 1 handicap. And the 1 Church Street building here is gonna have the 1 space behind us, right behind it, and the 1 handicap space. So where it currently has 0, it will have 2, 1 handicapped and 1 regular parking space.
Mr. Pucci, one of the other questions that came up in the various review letters, I believe it came up in about 3 different places, but how is that going to be preserved to the benefit of the borough? Correct me if I'm wrong, will be done by you.
Oh, yes, how will the spaces be? Yes, we can do an easement over these spaces to the benefit of the borough, so, and of course, whatever physical signage, striping, et cetera, that the borough and your professional may want, we will of course provide.
In fact, while we're touching on it, just to be clear, there was a couple of other instances where it was raised. There's gonna be a cross easement regime set up through this entire community, correct?
Well, that's correct, because these are not traditional rights of way, but we did provide a subdivision proposed plat for each of the individual townhomes. Now, they're all going to be on individual lots, and the redevelopment ordinance does provide for exactly that. The bulk standards for the overall tract do not apply to those individual lots. They have a minimum requirement of 2,000 square feet, which we meet, and some certain minimum bulk criteria, which are all met for those lots. But other than that, the plat, which depicts the road cartway alignment, those will be private lots for a private road. And there will be cross-access easements and blanket easements over them because we have within those pavement areas a number of utilities such as some limited storm sewer, all the sanitary sewer, the water mains, the gas and other cable type utilities such as electric, telephone, telecom will all be within the pavement area. So there'll be blanket easements to allow that to occur and give rights for, of course, access for the motoring public to just go through them.
And similarly, there'll be rights granted to the borough as well in order to have access to the extent the borough needs excuse me, we English difficult to me, text me,
I'm sorry.
we English difficult to my text, my real. My seventh,
Okay, sir, I know the applicant, they're presenting their application. There will be a time
we,
for you to ask questions.
지금 하시는 거 쭉 들어보면 제 내용을 말할 시간이 없을 것 같아요.
English.
Very title.
Let him do his presentation.
Let
and
them
you can ask
finish.
questions.
Later.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sure.
There's, that's pretty much the overall intent of the utility infrastructure, the fill, the location of the units, et cetera. There are a number of, comments in the review letters, as Mr. Puckett said, we agreed on basically a large chunk of them. There are some that do require some discussion. There is the issue of the parking variance that I did describe to you. For the locations as I'm looking right on this particular sheet here, you can see, again, the 3 parking spaces that are north of Pullman Way, I have less than 10 feet. You know, as I said, they're generally around 8 feet. There is one where it's 7. There are a number of bulk criteria within the redevelopment plan for things such as a perimeter buffer, a setback for any ground floor amenities that exist or excuse me, are proposed. Ground floor amenities being something like in the back of a townhouse here. I'm looking at now sheet 8, and that shows, for example, I'm going to blow it up to make it a little clearer for people to understand, but where I have the Brown Street bioretention system that I described before. If you continue a little bit south of that area and move over, see people can see Brown Street is over here. And we're proposing townhouses that have their back against the common property line of the rear of homes that front on Brown Street. So there is this 10-foot wide backyard perimeter buffer that we have. And that says that we cannot have any ground floor things such as what's shown on here, this light gray area that I'm circling is a patio. But the dashed line up above represents a second floor deck, if you will, of the townhouse at the upper level. And the ordinance says, okay, I can have a 10-foot setback at the ground level, but I have a 25-foot setback for amenity space on the second floor of the residential use. So, for example, this is a 10 by 10 deck on the second floor. It complies, it's outside of that setback. There are locations here where we specifically call out a 10 by 8 deck. It's still 10 feet wide, but only 8 feet deep off the unit to make sure it complies with that bulk requirement of no second floor amenity space within 25 feet of the property boundary.
Just a couple of questions while you're going on. So there's a requirement that there be a landscape buffer separating all of the new construction from any existing residential lots.
Residential lots that are zoned or used residential, yes.
And there are some comments in the report that will go into greater detail with our landscape architect if necessary, but we're fully complying with that plan.
Well, we are complying and or will comply because that 10-foot buffer is shown. However, there's a requirement for a staggered row of evergreen trees. And the current plan does not fully show that. Sometimes there are larger trees, sometimes there are shrubs. So we will amend the plan, the landscape architect can speak to that, to conform to the letter of the ordinance.
And I'd suggest to the board, I'd just offer, I mean, what our landscape architect did, and he'll talk about this in greater detail, was interspersed some shrubbery to give it some contrast and some interest, as opposed to just 2 rows of offset trees. the board may well want to consider maintaining some differentiation, but we'll address that later. Mr. Pucci, you had mentioned about the well expansion donation rate. I think you said it was 3250, is it in fact 4250 square feet? I just want to make sure that.
Oh, I was wondering if you're right. I just moved over to sheet 10 of the set, just so I can see, and the area is not on it, so I will go back to the concept plan, with it. I know it's actually shown in the concept plan. $4,250 square feet, so senior moment, I said the word 3,500, it's 4,250. And I do remember describing it as the orange area shown on here, and that is for this existing well building that is in this triangular trapezoidal lot that is offsite, not part of our project. To allow for the expansion of that facility if and when necessary and desired.
And there'll also be associated easements for access, right?
Of course.
You wanna, think it's a good time to start going through some of the review comments?
That's unless the board has questions before that.
So you testified about the access to the roads, and I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly, that the roads will not be dedicated to the borough,
Correct, they are going to be private roads.
and there's gonna be access for public traversing or no?
Yes, absolutely. Blanket
And-
easements, as I said, for all, not just traversing, but also the utilities underneath.
And, snow removal, is that borough responsibility or the developer's responsibility? You knew the answer to that question.
No, it's going to be a homeowners association responsibility, not technically the developer.
Sorry, HOA will take responsibility for snow removal,
Correct.
for,
All
maintenance of those roads.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Now, as you know, or maybe you don't know, there are legal provisions for the homeowners association to seek reimbursement from the municipality for certain of those costs, and they may well do that, they may not do that, I don't know, we're not.
The reason why I'm asking is because that has been an ongoing issue with a particular HOA in the borough, and I'm asking, that's why I want it on the record.
And it will be part of the easements, which I'm sure the borough's attorney will ultimately review and approve, including Mr. Kaczynski would likely have a hand in reviewing and approving to make sure that.
And waste as well, I'm sorry, that's.
We are doing private waste removal.
Okay.
So as we noted, except for as we're about to discuss on the record, we are willing to comply with all of the review comments and all of the review letters, but we'll start with the planning comments that are related to the civil plans.
Alright, so let's burn a PB four, just Miss McManus's memo.
Correct. So, Mr. Pucci, and some of these are requests for clarification, which we'll provide, but also conflicts in some instances, very few actually. Section, comment number 5.2 asked us to comment on our compliance with EV requirements. Can you speak about that?
Okay, so the EV requirements are going to be met, just trying to find 5.2.
For the public, what is EV?
Oh, yes.
Electric vehicle charging stations. There's a state statute which everybody must comply with, any new development and in some cases retrofits of old developments. And that basically states that you have to provide either, electrical vehicle charging capabilities for 15% of your required parking spaces. And that 15% is broken out as 5% of the required parking spaces at the approval, but another 5% within 3 years of the issuance of the first CO, and the remaining 5% within 6 years of the issuance of the first CO and certificate of occupancy. And nothing provides you or prohibits you from exceeding that, either in number or in time frame. But the project does require and I believe I summarized this in our general notes, there's, on the site plan set, and the second sheet has a massive amount of notes. And since the required parking, for the residential component is, gonna require that we have 261 spaces inclusive of the 56 spaces for visitors. We have to kind of look at these differently. Because the visitor spaces, the way the RSIS reads, you have a certain number of spaces for townhouses. Or in the case of, as I'm showing over here, the apartment buildings that are the veterans homes. Those number of spaces, whatever it happens to be, depending on the size of the unit, maybe a 2-bedroom unit requires 2.1 spaces, or whatever it happens to be. That number, that requirement is inclusive of 1/2 space for visitor parking that's built into the parking requirements. So for the total project of the 111 townhomes and the 12 veterans homes, we do need 266 total parking spaces. That's not the number that's on the plans. Mr. Troutman caught a math error and we're going to fix that. But the number is correct at 266. And of that, 56 are on-street visitor spaces, of which 15% would have to be EV spaces. So that means of the visitor spaces, I have to provide a total of 40, which in third winds up being 14, 13, and 13. So we have designated on the plan, on the site plan set, a number of EV spaces, including 2 that are handicapped accessible, because you have to have at least 5% of your EV spaces to be handicapped accessible. So we meet all those numbers. That's for the visitor parking. As far as the townhomes go, those would require the an additional number of parking spaces. I believe another 26, but that's to get to the total 15% of the whole big number. And the intent of the developer, who's going to be building the project, is to offer for each of the townhome purchasers the ability to have a EV charging station in their garage. That's not a mandate, that's an offer. But that developer has also said, if I'm getting anywhere near any thresholds where I'm not gonna meet it, then it's no longer an offer, it's a mandate, and it will be provided. So at a minimum, you'll have the minimum number of garages provided with EV charging stations, plus in excess of the 15%, the 40, for the visitor spaces.
But just to recap that, because I don't know that was as clear as it could be. You know, in numbers or something. If the requirement is 15%, and the first 15 townhome buyers ask for the option of the EV charger, that would satisfy it, we're done.
And it doesn't stop us
If
from doing more.
nobody asks for it, then it will be installed automatically in the last 15.
Correct.
And what is the total number of EV spaces for the 266 space parking spaces required? Just so we've got that number on record. 15% of 266.
You're a law school graduate.
Yeah. I'm just gonna steal a phone because it's not,
Just
I'm
gonna-
jumping out. of me.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure we know what the total is that's required.
40.
Okay. I had 40 just for visitors. That's where you're.
39.9.
All right, 40, got it, okay.
40.
Yep.
In the planning report, 5.3, we were asked to explain why there are 7 locations where sidewalks are not on both sides of the street.
Well, there are 5 locations, the last 2 comments deal with crosswalks. And so, and this is, I'm just coming from the beginning of Ms. McManus's report to see it. That's the first place where I'm thinking about it. So, this concept plan that I'm going to now blow up, and this is something that, as I say, was part of the whole evolution of the project and the changes to preserving and reloading the road, et cetera. So there are some locations, for example, I'm gonna just go right here to the top, where I was describing the parking before that will be dedicated for the Allies building and then One Church Street building. At the edge of the westerly parking spaces, the 7 that we have that are on the west side of Central Station, they have right behind them a bioretention system. And we are not putting a sidewalk behind those because the design of the bioretention system does require that the water go over a flush curb, not a full height 6-inch curb, but it's a flush mount curb. And then over the water,
Plus now, plus now.
Instead of up 6 inches.
yeah, like a driveway apron, but much
Oh,
longer.
okay.
And the water will flow over that flush curb and then over a 5-foot wide area of what will be river rock, or sometimes people want riprap, it depends on the preference of the board and your planner. But generally, we would use river rock, and the purpose of that is to dissipate the energy of water, because you have water flowing across pavement, and then it's gonna flow to the edge of the pavement and keep going. You don't want to erode the vegetation, you want it to dissipate the energy over the rock, and then right behind that, it flows into the vegetation, which is the bioretention system. And that occurs, for example, right here on the west side of Central Station at this Church Street bioretention basin. If I slide down a little further, I have at the bottom, I have down by Route 12, the south bioretention system on the west side. The same thing occurs where the water is going to be directed off of the pavement, over the flush curb, over the river rock, into the bioretention system. Where Five Bridges Way and Central Station intersect, Five Bridges Way being the western extension of our little road to service these townhomes. There's another southwest bioretention system that's gonna have flow coming off of both Five Bridges Way, those parking spaces there, and the ones along Central Station. We have a similar instance, I'm still moving over to the west side now, where at Forge Road Extension to the west of the Veterans Apartments, I have parking there, and at the head of those parking spaces, again, same thing. Flush curb, river rock, and bioretention system. The river rock is generally at a gentle slope of 2%, 3%, something like that. And then the bioretention system is like an excavated or constructed above ground, depending upon where you're at on the site. A side slope that's a little steeper, so that's where the vegetation is that will then treat the water, but you can't have a curb there and then a sidewalk behind it, because the water will never do what the stormwater management green infrastructure measures intended to do.
So which one is that? So under 5.3.
All right, so
I think he's talking
5.3A, the sidewalk not provided on the western side of Central Station and Route 12. That's the one I was just describing down here, looking at Route 12. We're coming in the existing entrance that's there today, curving around our bioretention systems, the one on the left, the southwest or south, that will not have sidewalk there. We do have sidewalk coming down the road. There is a crosswalk, and we continue the sidewalk on the east side down to meet the existing sidewalk that runs along the shoulder of the pavement, far away from the railroad line, but right at the edge of the Route 12 pavement. There's an existing sidewalk that we're going to connect to. I talked about the west side of Central Station at the Church Street entrance. That's the first one we described up top, where I was talking about the parking spaces that are being dedicated for the Allied and One Church Street structures.
So that one you're not proposing to be live.
Correct. None of these locations.
None of
We're proposing to follow the green infrastructure requirements of stormwater and allow the flush curb, river rock flow into the bioretention systems. The C talks about connecting the existing and proposed sidewalk at Route 12 to the site. So what I just described is we're actually connecting the proposed sidewalk on the east side of Central Station. We're not proposing on the west side because of what I just described with the green infrastructure bioretention, but we are providing the crosswalk to allow anyone who's walking down the sidewalk on the west side of Central Station to cross over to the east side and continue down to Route 12.
So hold on, I don't think that you're addressing what I asked for, I didn't say.
Okay.
And maybe, I'm sorry if it wasn't clear, but what I'm asking for is the existing sidewalk along Route 12 to continue and connect to the sidewalk on your property. I essentially want a connection between the existing sidewalk at the cartway, just simply through the right of way to connect to your sidewalk.
I'm talking about right here, this. where I'm going up.
Right, you had mentioned the maybe I misunderstood you, but you had mentioned the crosswalk, which isn't relevant. I'm asking for a connection for people walking along Route 12 that want to go to the property. up this main Pine Road, that they simply have a sidewalk along.
And there is, it's right here.
Yeah, the comment we thought, Ms. McManus, was why is there not sidewalk on both sides? It's on one side.
I had mentioned, that's a different comment, and I had not asked for a comment on the west side, or a sidewalk on the west side. But if there's a sidewalk there and I had
Yeah.
overlooked it as an existing condition,
Well,
I
the
apologize, but
coloring
that's what I was asking.
hides it, but yes, the existing sidewalk that runs along Route 12. I'm following, running across here, on the east side of Central Station, we are extending our sidewalk all the way out to connect to the. Right here. And connection, we connect all the way down,
Thank you.
and the reason I said crosswalk is because anyone on the west side. Would come down and reach a point where there's no more sidewalk on the west side of Central Station because of the biofiltration. And they would therefore cross and then continue on the east side and have the ability to go down to Route 12 sidewalk.
So I think just for the record, A and B, I have not requested a change. C, J has actually showed me the highlighted plan to confirm that the sidewalk is there and I have missed it, so that connection is existing already, and so C could be deleted essentially.
Okay, but A and B, you are indicating something's not provided, and they're indicating that they do not plan to provide it.
That's correct, so I identified relief that I think the board needs to consider. I had specifically, the board is happy, I'm always happy to have the board request additional sidewalks, but I had not suggested that was particularly necessary, as you'll see in some of these other comments. I provide some strong language about what the benefit would be, or that it should be provided.
Excuse me, general question. Should the board feel strongly about having a sidewalk along the west side of Central Station? You're offering testimony as to why you can't do it based on how you designed the basin. Is there a different way for you to have designed these so that you don't have the sheet flow into the basin? Or is that, you're saying that's your only option for designing this kind of a basin?
I'm saying that that's the only option. I don't know of another way to get water to flow into those basins off of the pavement without creating a point source discharge, which is an erosive thing that's not allowed under the grid infrastructure. They do ask that the water flow over the, that's for the small scale biofiltration, over the dissipated energy riprap, or in this case, river level scenario. Comment D in 5.3 D in Ms. McManus's letter concerns Stangle Road here on the west side of the project. And what we are proposing right now is no sidewalk going down because we don't really have full control of that property. That was part of the whole notice thing and the hearing last week. 2 weeks ago, and we've since changed our plan, and we haven't submitted it, but we can change the plan. However, I believe Mr. Pepe can speak to the interaction between our property and that property, which may facilitate some additional work.
So, just to be clear, I mean, I'd love to have a sidewalk coming along Stangle as well, but I'm specifically just simply asking for sidewalks on the property that is under your control and is shown on the.
If you want to just start off on, done.
Yeah, I think at a minimum, the
That's
borough is still for any future road improvements we can.
Right, I mean, and you can see where you have future road planning in here. That we are going to, of course, take into account, and the sidewalk, we will put it on both sides. And there was actually a comment, I believe both in Mr. Clarko's letter and Mr. Troutman's letter, about Mr. Clarko was talking about site triangles at this intersection over here, and Mr. Troutman indicated that what we're showing right now is a stop condition on Stangle and a through condition on Forge, and we're just gonna make them a four-way stop. For all four legs of this intersection, we stop. That will just change that. I'll have to add 2 more site triangles. Comment E. Sidewalks along the road rather than being behind perpendicular parking.
Yeah, and this interacts directly with what you had started out with, talking about how the sidewalk goes, I think, around. Or you were unable to provide a sidewalk in certain locations,
I think it was by the Veterans Building.
yeah,
Well,
but what I'm, if you scroll up on the concept. for example.
right here.
Yeah, so there are a couple of, we're online.
So what we've done is
Yeah,
we've
there are a couple of
actually,
good examples where you've got the sidewalk that goes behind the parking spaces, and it's just at the top of where it's labeled Central Station. And I think that the likelihood of folks walking around the cars to continue is pretty low. And so I'd recommend that you do relocate the sidewalk and just put the parking spaces back to
well,
provide that straight.
the parking spaces are back and what is now here, it's a
No, no, no.
crosswalk.
No, I mean along Central Station by the label of Central.
You want all this moved into here and putting the parking spaces back?
Yes.
Well, that's fine. These we were kind of viewing as municipal parking. And since there's nothing behind here to worry about, you know, like you don't want to have, for example, a sidewalk wrapped around these 3 spaces here on Pullman Way, because then you have people walking within a foot or two of a private residence. And the reality is if they're walking across the sidewalk here, they're gonna keep going on the crosswalk. They're not gonna walk out of their way around the space. Here, it was more like, well, the car, you know, you're gonna get out of your car, you're gonna go to the sidewalk and go into one of the 2 buildings. But if you would prefer that we push these forward and put the sidewalk as an extension, as we've done in other places, no problem.
And then are there other locations aside from the northern portion of Central Station shown here, the southern portion of Central Station down at Route 12, which is missing 2 sides of sidewalk?
Right here,
Right there. But you're continuing the sidewalk across there, correct?
here I'm continuing the sidewalk as a crosswalk at the pavement level. Because the water is gonna flow across the road is not crowned, and Mr. Clarko did note that. It's all sheeting to, in this case, to the west. So that all the water would flow across the crosswalk, parking spaces, River Rock into the biofiltration area and be treated.
I think that's fine. I just wanna make sure that any pedestrians have a clear path to follow.
Yes, I mean,
And I think that that would accommodate.
this is a crosswalk. We can stripe it as, however we would like.
And then I wanted to look on, I think, Forge Road for the west. Yeah, I think I had not included that comment, but I'd like to see sidewalks along both sides of Forge Road as well.
Well, we have the sidewalk on the south side that runs all the way out.
Right.
Are you asking us to continue it out to the parking lot?
Yeah.
Okay, that's easy enough.
Can I also add that? In my understanding is that parking lot is gonna continue to be used for. Transfers.
I believe, yeah,
If you have residents using that bus, it'll be really tricky to have a sidewalk going right to them.
I mean, people are still gonna come in off of the entrance down here on 12 and then drive in. Instead of going to the left where the compensatory storage is where they currently park, we're gonna park here on the east, and however many of them park, they'll still be.
I'm just talking about if the bus comes in and the residents need a place to walk to get to the bus.
Yeah,
It's such a
our
great, it's a
residents.
great
The
site
sidewalk, you just agreed
A
to.
great
let
site.
them Do that.
for residents. to be-
You're taking notes, right?
That's the territory.
Somebody is.
Here is.
I got it. Just to clarify on the right angle parking spaces, where you're gonna have. Best suggestion, you're gonna make them deeper and stripe a walkway behind the spaces. Is that what you suggest? I wasn't. Behind the spaces. Like you were looking for a walkway in here,
Yes, yeah, so
so
essentially,
you're gonna put the spaces.
yes,
Okay.
yeah, same as
So-
along Central.
In all those locations where you don't have sidewalk on both sides of the street and you have the angled spaces, the testimony is they can't. Do a sidewalk along the front because they have the sheet rock in the basin. They're indicating that's the only type of way they can design this kind of basin. The alternate suggestion is to make the spaces deeper. And have a crosswalk stripe, delineated somehow. Would that be just normal striping, or would that be something like? Forced concrete or something that be more distinguishable?
I think, for me personally, I think crosswalk striping would be more than adequate. It would
Okay.
certainly be visible enough. I don't feel the need to have, concrete in that location. I'll defer to Jay if he disagrees.
In this particular location, I'm showing you up at church where we were discussing before. The parking spaces for the Allies and Church Street building. I believe what you asked is to push these parking spaces, the 8+1 on the right side or the east side, further away and continue the sidewalk as a crosswalk behind the spaces at the edge of the crossway, similar to what we have here, for example, on Pullman Way, where the spaces are pushed behind the extension of the sidewalk as a crosswalk.
Correct.
I'm just trying to make sure that we're all on the same page, with Mr. Clarko as well. For the 7 spaces on the west side, there's no reason to push those further into the basin and have a continuation of the sidewalk there, because basically, when you're on the sidewalk on the right side, which is now gonna be a continuation up here, and these 3 will also get the same treatment, pushed back. That's gonna connect you to Church, which then all of the existing Church Street is to the east. There's really nothing to the west to connect to. So the suggestion of pushing these spaces further into and shrinking that fire retention, that was not what you were asking. Is that, Mr. Clarko?
Well, no, and let's focus on those particular 7 spaces. Right now you have 7 spaces there. If I park in one of those spaces, I don't have access to a sidewalk anywhere. I have to basically I have to walk across Central Station Road, either between cars to get to a sidewalk on the opposite. And Central Station is as far as this project is concerned, it's a pretty major thoroughfare. For moving traffic, between Route 12 and Church Street and in and out of the project. So
We're right up
pointing
at the
out,
end where
those
the-
are 7, in this particular case, those are 7 spaces being dedicated in some fashion and an easement to the borough for use on the public, for the use of the public buildings, however they end up getting used. And we don't have there's no defined pedestrian path for those particular spaces. That's really what I'm pointing out here. And you're indicating you can't put the sidewalk on the basin side because of the way the stormwater system is
Correct.
designed. And I'll accept your testimony, that's the only way this basin will be designed, and I would agree with you if this is the only way that basin will be designed, and yeah, you can't put a sidewalk on what would normally be the front end of the car.
Right.
And what we're discussing here is making the spaces deeper and distinguishing something along the back of this, as long as it's clearly distinguished.
Right, now, we're doing that on the east side. I was just trying to clarify. Are you trying to do that on the east
Well,
side?
on the east side, you actually have a sidewalk.
Well, and we're going to switch that, as McManus just asked.
Oh, then I didn't follow that. You're gonna switch that to.
We're gonna push the spaces.
Behind the parking spaces?
No, they're gonna switch that. They're gonna put.
Can I weigh in? I
Yeah.
don't know if I like
Yeah.
pedestrians walking behind the parked cars.
You don't?
No.
No, same, I agree.
So
Yeah.
I kind of like that sidewalk system as it designed. Because they can get out, the parked car, the pedestrians can get out and get right to the sidewalk. And as for the 7 spaces, I think those people would find their way to the sidewalk
Oh.
system on the east side.
So you think the 7 on the east side, the west side, don't need a sidewalk?
Correct.
Further, okay.
Correct. I think those people would find their way to the sidewalk system that leads them to the buildings they're going to, the church and the allies.
Plenty of sight distance in that area so that somebody driving in would see that.
Sight line on Central Station?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you have good sight line through there to view any pedestrian
So they can see
activity.
a pedestrian crossing. the street.
Yes.
I mean, somebody parks there and they're walking to the Forge office building. And there's sidewalk there, right? So they're gonna be walking in the street the whole time to get.
There are 7 spaces. I think those 7 parked cars would need to immediately cross Central Station and pick up the sidewalk system that's on the east side.
Right, but if they wanna go to the one church, the Forge building. You know, I mean.
Which is still on the east of those, right?
Is it on the east side?
Yeah.
It's
on the east side. It is on the east side.
Can I just make sure that I got this right? Jay is okay with the plan as on the screen. Beth was raising a question about switching it, so what are we hearing?
Probably a difference of opinion. I had to say it because I just don't like pedestrians walking behind parked cars. I'd rather have them, navigate around.
Listen, if we're talking about comment, I'm sorry, that's what we're talking about. It says the applicant, that's the word says the applicant should revise the sidewalk plan to provide sidewalks along the road rather than behind perpendicular parking. So you don't like it behind, I don't think you like it behind either.
I think they have a difference in terms of what the word behind it.
Okay, that's wrong.
Yeah.
That's really meant in front.
Yeah.
Right,
I
in
don't
front of
know.
the car,
I want this.
behind the spot.
Yeah, my recommendation is the sidewalk is along the cartway. Let's
Along
put
the
it that
road.
way. Jay's recommendation, I think, is that the sidewalk be on the other side of the cars to avoid back versus front.
Yeah, it's along the cartway, but then when you encounter some of these parking indentations, it would then,
Go
the
in front of
sidewalk
it.
would go, so you're not putting pedestrians behind.
But the
Parked
existing
cars.
condition on Stangle northward here has, I mean, I know that's where it's complicated because like the half of the right of way is the parking spot. Oh, that's a, you got the sidewalks contiguous and the parking spots there and people have no problems navigating that. And that's what's on this plan here to the similar, in the similar district, right?
Yeah, the only, I wouldn't make a complaint about the existing Stangle Road. The concern here is, that I'm raising is, I'm not sure if people will follow the sidewalk. And so let's put the sidewalk where I suspect people will walk. Jay's point is that I think you don't want them potentially in the way of backing up car, which I
Yeah.
don't think is an illegitimate comment. It's just two different,
How about
ways to deal
approaches?
with it.
Yeah.
as a compromise?
Do
Yes,
both?
to both of you. Leave the parking as it's shown right now along Central Station right here with the sidewalk at the head of, that is, not at the cartway edge, but at the head of the spaces for the reason that Mr. Chapman said. The people in there are gonna find their way to the sidewalk and then go, oh, there's a sidewalk provided up between the two buildings. However, for the little minor spaces that we're talking about, like, you know, between the residential units like on Pullman Way or on Forge Road or out on the west on Forge Road. You leave it the way you were describing, Ms. McManus, which is the likely path is they're gonna continue across there, and we're not talking about here, a high volume, high traffic, high speed situation. So hopefully, Mr. Chalk can be comfortable that someone walking behind a parked car, you're not looking at someone who's flying down Central Station trying to beat a light or something. You're just walking, someone leaving a residential visitor parking space.
Well,
So at the end of all that, it's just leave the plan alone.
just to point, yeah, just to point out something, and again, unless I'm misreading the plan. Those minor spaces that you have, like for example, look at, along Pullman, they are deep, extra deep. You do have the sidewalk that approaches on either side, you do have like a striped walkway behind the
Correct,
street.
the 18-foot space is
Yeah,
clear. of the
you do
walkway.
have that on the minor scenarios. I was suggesting that for the 7 spaces on the west side of Central that are gonna be dedicated to the public, something similar.
I just questioned whether that was necessary because what you're then doing is having people walk northward from the sidewalk that on the west side of
You're-
Central Station, and then they get to a dead end where they can't go any further
You're-
because we have.
Well,
the fire
or they
protection
can walk
system.
south to where the crosswalk, you're giving them an option.
Okay.
Right, the way this is, I'm just pointing out to the board, if you park in one of those 7 spaces, your only option is to walk across Central Avenue, in some fashion, find your way, you start walking behind the cars on the other side, along Central Station to a sidewalk, or to continue to walk straight across between cars, you know, to get to a sidewalk.
All right, so your suggestion is to change them. Mr. Chapman's suggestion was that those spaces, the people would find their way to the sidewalks
that's-
from the east side, so.
That's the
You
discussion.
guys. Flip the phone?
You know, for the board, I'm comfortable deferring to Mr. Troutman. This is, you know, it's traffic consideration. I'm sorry, thank you. I said for the board, I wanted to make clear, I'm gonna defer to Jay on anything regarding parking, circulation, and things like that, so.
So we're leaving it as.
As
shown.
Wow, that was a long time.
I'm just glad I finally understand.
I think that this probably would be a good time for a short break.
No, we've gone through 2 items, not even.
Well, you know what? We're not gonna, as I said, we're agreeing to the you know, unless that has been a question.
To be fair, I only have two more,
Yeah,
one and a half more.
we don't have a lot of
Our
objections.
letter, I think we finished our letter.
Yeah, just. you
Yeah,
know,
let's try to
we're-
finish the planning letter if we can, I think we're close.
Okay, good, keep going then.
Item 5.5, we were asked to comment on.
The rest of 5.3 was okay, after
Yeah.
Jay's?
5.5, we were asked to comment on the need for a gate at the railroad crossing.
Whatever the railroad people want, they will get.
That railroad crossing and any associated safety gates or signage is actually governed by Department of Transportation.
Right.
So,
Well, and it's a private rail, but it's still got the DOT hole. You need the diagnostic team meeting out on the site, see what you're gonna do. And whatever they say, yeah.
This is kind of a combination landscape question, which I would defer to our landscape architect, but it also has to do with our concept plan. We had on the concept plan originally shown a wet basin at the front entrance to the development in item 4.3 of the planning review memo.
You're going backwards, 4.3.
Well, it was in it's under landscape, not civil.
Yes. Well, okay, so as part of the review of the project by DEP, one of the things that was noticed by DEP is that, okay, this was originally intended to be what we call a wet pond. Which are, you know, a retention basin, not a detention basin, which has a dry bottom, but a retention basin. Green infrastructure requirements tell you no more detention basins whatsoever. You can have a retention basin, a wet pond, provided you meet a number of threshold criteria, such as, well, length, width ratios, depth, a bunch of little technical things that are easy to do. However, the one killer here is that the drainage area to a wet pond must be at least 20 acres. And the drainage area to this pond is maybe 3 acres, 3.5 acres. There's no way it can be a wet pond because it does not support having water in it. And DEP doesn't let you do what we used to do 10 years ago.
That's the one on the 12th.
Yes.
Yeah, this is the one that the town wanted to have
A
a
fountain.
fountain in
Right.
and make it all pretty as an entrance.
We did too. Honestly, Mayor.
The rules just changed.
Well, we used to be allowed to put a well in to fill up the basin to make sure it always had water in it. Not allowed anymore. And you have to have a 20-acre drainage area to allow it to occur. And we're not even a seventh of that.
Your testimony, though, is that this is not just the site, that this is serving drainage needs on Brown and areas to the east.
Well,
That
this
does not
particular one
actually-
serves, yes, the back of some of these homes here on Brown, as well as our side. I think it's like 60-40 us them.
So even accounting for that, you're not getting close to.
Not even
neighbors.
close. 3.8 is the number sticking in my head. But we're well below the 20-acre threshold that we could never support. And we can't put in a makeup well to allow it to fill up.
So what is the proposal to make it a beautiful entranceway if we can't have a fountain? Massive
Well,
statue
it is going to
juice.
be a bioretention system with lots of flora and fauna. The landscape architect can describe you the type of plants and the options that are available. There are DEP criteria that have to be adhered to for the type of plant you put in there. But we can make it as pretty as possible.
That's what the town envisioned, the council envisioned something magnificent for people driving past it and people going in it.
Well, now that you have bioretention on both sides, you can enter into a landscape.
Big landscape areas on both sides that you drive it up.
So
No miniature park on.
I would.
Miniature parks.
No
not,
follies.
you know,
He's gonna make a comment.
And he would have to be sworn in.
Yeah.
The last thing, if I could, we did receive some review comments from the environment.
Hold on,
Sorry,
before we move on, does this mean that you agree to everything else in my report?
Well, there are.
Everything site plan related, I do.
There
yes.
are architectural.
The architect and the,
Can you give me, I just wanna be really clear, if we're not gonna address some of these items, I just wanna know the numbers that you agree to. You can just tell me you agree to section 4.0, for example. Section 3.0. I mean, section 3.0 is zoning compliance, there's only one item in there where I asked for the heights of buildings to be confirmed. But section 4.0 is general subdivision, site plan, miscellaneous comments, section 5 is parking.
Well, 4.3A is what we just talked about.
Yep.
But
That
everything
we
else,
cannot comply with.
I pretty much have everything in my margin said yes, but I do have 4.5. And with something to be clarified with the landscape architect regarding the fence materials, colors, etc.
Okay, so 4.5 will be covered by the landscape architect, but all.
4, 3, 5, 7, 6, 2, and 6, 3 are landscape architect. I mean, I can share this with Mr. Kaminsky. I've written down the ones that we need to discuss or take in place.
I think I'm hitting them as we go.
Okay.
It might be useful for the board members because you're giving planning testimony, right? So 4.1, yes, is fine, 4.2 is fine. I just want to make sure, like, as we, just so that we know what's been agreed to, this, if somebody else's testimony, that's fine, but like the stuff that's planning.
Okay. So yes, 4.1 is yes, 4.2, yes, 4.3, we just described cannot be done. 4.4, yes, 4.5 will be the landscape architect. 4.6, yes, we agreed to. 4.7, the architect can testify to it, but my understanding is we're not providing open privacy fencing at this time.
And if that changed, we'd have to come back.
4.8, yes. 4.9, that's something that the landscape architect can work out with, the satisfaction of that, and we'll indicate whatever we have to in our plans to
So
comport.
it's a yes then.
4.10, yes. 5.1, yes. 5.2, we described earlier, the UV spaces. 5.3, we went through ad nauseum A through E, and we agreed to F and G.
Okay, so I had A and B. I had A and B included, not agreed to, I had C and D agreed to. You're saying.
No, C, I think went away, didn't it?
You see, we said, I
Yeah,
thought we said it was okay.
Yeah, C is not
Yeah,
applicable. and-
Exactly. So A, B, and E are issues. Everything else is okay, or goes away.
Yeah, we
I
agreed to
think
D,
they're not-
A, B, and E, we are not going to do.
Correct.
Hold on. To provide the sidewalks in A and B?
No.
Okay.
If you weren't asking for one.
Okay,
A, B,
yeah, I
and
thought so.
E.
Okay,
I'm marking the no's, so I've got
That's
A,
fine.
B, and E,
okay.
because I figured there's less of
That's
those.
fine.
And D were to 5.4, yes. 5.5, we just described. 5.6 is a rhetorical comment for informational purposes, doesn't require a response. 6 is all landscaping related issues.
Well, I was gonna ask you about 6.2 though, just for the
Yes.
record, we are gonna comply with all of the comments that were taken from the Environmental Commission's review, with the exception of one. There's no water available for this site. So we, we'll do the shading, we'll do, the benches, we'll add the trash cans, we'll add the signage, but we can't provide water.
The public water fountain, following filling station.
That's 6.2D.
Yep.
6.3, I'm gonna say, I love the words to the extent possible, because we absolutely will do that. There are, as you understand in your comment, places where utilities and or driveways just give us a problem, but we will, I'll represent that the landscape architect will also agree to revisit this and add as much as we can while still respecting the needs for the utility crossings and driveways.
Okay, and so that would be to the approval of the board planner.
Yes.
Actually, I'd just like to state for the record, to the extent that we're agreeing, if it needs to be tweaked, we hope that if it's required conversation with the board professionals and everybody's in agreement that would be acceptable.
6.4 we kind of touched on, but I'm gonna say 6.4 through 6.11 really would be better served to be agreed to by the landscape architect. Same thing, because the landscape architect did the lighting plan. We think they're all fine, but
With respect to architect.
well, there are architects to speak to that. Nine. We did fix the sign location. It is actually right here on the concept plan in our property. The existing one is actually out here, but we're gonna put the new one right here. It's on the site plans.
Okay. Okay.
Mike, Mr. Pucci, is that gonna be illuminated,
Not internally illuminated. There may be an external light shining on it. That can be discussed with the board, but nothing is going, it's not an internal illuminated sign, because that's a lot.
And you'll provide a detail for that?
There is a detail in the plans, and we also have an exhibit that the architect can show what the sign will look like. Sheet, the third to the left sheet, bottom right corner.
I don't think we're proposing any facade signage for the veteran building.
That is correct.
Other than the address. Nor are we proposing any signage for the commercial building that we're maintaining. We really don't know who the tenant or what its ultimate use is going to be yet. We'll come back in with a sign application if it's conforming signage or, you know, an application for a variance if not.
Yeah,
And the affordable housing requirements, we're gonna comply with.
And so I just want to be clear on the locations of affordable housing, you'll, as part of resolution, submit, resolution compliance, you'll submit a plan that shows the locations of the townhouses, right? Yep,
Yeah,
great, thank you.
yeah, they've identified them, and, we actually, I don't know that we have that one, I think what we got was. Recently, we got the key plan that shows how we're going to address the variation requirement between the various.
Here's the,
You got both, Tom.
this is an exhibit.
Okay.
Yeah, we do have. And this shows that, okay, in this plan, these
Mark that.
red.
Mark that.
Mark it as,
A4.
I think you're right, say for.
the concept plan with, low mod townhouse locations.
And there's nothing. The verbiage is first closing 59 townhomes, settlement affordable townhomes.
Thank you.
So this indicates where those 7 affordable townhomes are proposed to be located. Just to,
Again, for the record, it's all in phase one, so, you know, it's all in the first batch.
At first pass, I have no, comments or concerns, but I think I'll get that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is that great?
Yeah, they good for a break, yeah,
No, it's not.
10 minutes.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, quick here.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're going to, do the public hearing till about 10:30 at break point because we still.
Jim,
have-
can you move the microphone closer, please?
Sorry, I complained about that myself. I say we will, continue the meeting till about 10:30. Because we have, more business to do tonight anyway for the board. And then we'll get the meeting rescheduled.
So, thank you for back on the record. I think that I saw the.
Hold on, we just wanna,
Go ahead.
let's just do another roll call.
Oh, yes. Mayor Carroll? Here. Mrs. Sorrels? Here. Mr. Campion?
Here,
Mr. Hill? Here. Mr. Dashna?
Here.
Ms. Weitzman?
Here,
Ms. Stingle? Here. Mr. Eckel?
Here.
Mr. Show?
Here.
And our board professionals are here.
Yes.
Sorry, you're good.
Oh, it's quite all right. So I saw the borough's fire marshal here, and I thought that would be a good place to pick up. We have a review letter dated September 17th, 2024, marked as PD2. We're gonna comply with all of the conditions in there. One of them was to demonstrate that the new fire apparatus that's been obtained by the borough would be operable in the streets. Mr. Pucci, you wanna speak about that?
Yes, I did submit a circulation plan as part of the resubmission about a month and a half ago. And that showed the truck that we had used at that time could adequately maneuver around all of the streets. That truck happened to be a 105-foot aerial ladder truck. I learned from Mr. McCormick that you have on order for delivery, hopefully in February, a Pierce 100-foot aerial truck. And I received the turning templates from Pierce, verified that what we had shown complies. Actually, the turning radius of your new truck is a little bit better than what we had already designed. So the new truck that you're getting will work on the streets and be able to safely maneuver.
Thank you.
But if the fire marshal does not have any additional questions, we will comply with all of the comments in this video.
You good, Ken?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay.
Yes, I just like to note that there was another email from Mr. McCormick on October 31st that he had no additional comments after review of the revised plans that were submitted by the applicant.
Thank you.
Do we know when the next hearing would be?
Our next meeting is the 17th.
Yeah, I thought as much. I just wanted to see if any of my consultants would have a problem. I've been slammed, thank you.
Even I rolled and slammed, no.
It's all good. We did just for the, I don't think I took it here, we received a letter today. I'm not suggesting that it should be admitted as evidence, but one of the neighbors of the property has asked for certain improvements. Changes to the plan, Mr. Pucci.
I'm trying to stick with the board professionals first.
Oh, well, I thought we were done with these.
We haven't covered Mr. Clarko's letter.
Oh. We'll do that.
Oh.
Will that take about an hour or over an hour?
I hope not. I'm gonna say, I'm good with everything in his letter up to page 9 so far. Because some of the things that are in his letter have already been discussed because they also appeared in Ms. McManus's letter, such as the decorative, the fountain at the basin down at Route 12.
2.1.3.
I'm looking at 1.11, the, that was covered last year. 2.1.3 is the basin of Route 12. 2.1.5, those are the sidewalk issues we just described. Two point 3.2 is also the sidewalk issue.
So 2.3.2.
Yes. The next thing I've highlighted is 3.2 and 3.3, which is the same issue again, the sidewalks. Three point 5 is a traffic engineering comment, which I will defer to the traffic engineer. 3.6, we will add the side triangles as we discussed, which we comply with Mr. Troutman's recommendation of this full stop, four-way stop condition. 4.5.5, I believe, is not applicable anymore since it relates to the stormwater management issues and the sidewalk that we've discussed. 4.5.6. This relates to the request for a swale, and this I'll actually call the plan just to make everybody aware of what we're speaking of. Okay, so the concern is that the area at the top side of the western part of the track where we're putting the veterans homes and the parking for them, which is above the road. That this is an area of fill, and then the tail end of the fill drains down towards the lot behind us. In reality, the lot behind us sort of drains inward on the east side anyway to a low spot in this area. And then in the west side of that lot up against us, it's relatively flat, but we are providing one relief point for water that may collect in that area, an inlet to collect water at the toe of our slope and bring it into our storm sewer system. The request was to regrade the area and put a swale in, which would then severely impact the back of the veterans home and big problem with the bioretention system there. So what I would offer as an alternative solution that I can work out with Mr. Clerico is to put a couple of yard drains at key locations across there wherever he felt that there might be a concern for a low spot. Those yard drains would be nothing more than little plastic boxes connected with maybe a 6-inch PVC to the inlet that we already have in that area. So it's sort of a wicking system to make sure any area that might be wet doesn't stay wet. So it is in fact on the east side, a little bit of a wetland that does drain away from us, so we can't help that. I would just like to work that out to his satisfaction with him, instead of regrading and causing a problem for the bioretention basin there.
Well, this is very similar to the situation we had on a project that the board was reviewing on the other side of Route 12. And essentially, which the fill you're putting in, you have a large piece of your property, basically upstream from you, that's relatively flat, has isolated wetlands in it and whatnot, but does drain down into the part of your property where you're putting the fill. And you're effectively creating, I'll call it a dam for lack of better purposes, water that would be normally going in a southerly direction now is going to hit a fill area and be sort of impounded along that. It would be relatively simple. It's your property on the adjoining property. You don't have to necessarily change anything on your side. Just to create a swale that has some slope and conveys it to where that collection point is. Whether you need one or more collection points is something you'd have to decide, but I would think you could almost accomplish it. What we don't want is creating any additional wetlands or stagnant water behind your property. That's all we're trying to avoid.
I agree.
Because you have a collection point. I'm just questioning whether water would get to that collection point.
Well, I've just now started sharing sheet 19, which is the grading plan for my site plan set.
That's the same sheet I'm looking at. Yeah.
Okay, so what I have really is, this is all the same contour in here. And this contour at our property in the existing condition, it actually drains inward a little bit towards a wet area offsite.
So you're saying that from your property line drains to the north?
Only on the east side. To the west, it does drain down into this area. And that's why
I'll be very honest with you, I think you and I have to have an offline conversation on the minutiae of detail that's going on here.
Well, I'd rather than trying to regrade swales in here on someone else's property, and I have a 3-to-1 slope from the property line up to the fill behind the residential units or to the basin. I'm suggesting I'll put in additional inlets at whatever point along here that you think is necessary and appropriate, and we'll make sure it stays dry, because we also agree we don't want to have a wet area back there.
Right, so we have to work out something.
Yeah, and I'd just like to put on the record that I'll work it out to his satisfaction. There it is.
Board understand, but I think just.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think we're not. You guys are going to discuss that.
We're gonna
offline.
work out some sort of a detail. They agree.
They agree
they
it's
don't
the
want-
issue,
yeah.
and you guys are gonna work out exactly how to deal with that, but we're not sure exactly what that is just yet.
The satisfaction of the board.
Okay, 5.5.1 deals with the testing that we handled at the completeness aspect of the hearing. 5.7.3 is the same comment about the basin down.
Excuse me, go back to 5.1, we handled that, how?
My recollection is that we said that we're going to eventually do the required testing and demonstrate to your
Let's-
satisfaction that the basin works as designed, and if not, you have to come back.
My recollection and the minutes of the meeting say that you're gonna have your LSRP offer testimony as to why you can't do the testing now. That was the discussion at the last meeting. The board waived it as a completeness item. And we had a rather lengthy discussion about it. It's gonna be in my view, it's gonna be one of the, from an engineering perspective, one of the critical things that the board's gonna have to deal with here. They were being asked,
That is absolutely correct, Bob. Yeah, I was the one who asked for it, because you said you could not testify on behalf of the LSRP.
No, I'm not an LSO.
That's what you said, that's what you told us, and I
Right.
said, I asked, can we get him here?
Okay.
You all said, yeah.
yeah, I think we have to understand why you can't comply. That was,
5.7.3 is the same DEP, issue with the wet basin. 9.4, I do not understand, so I'd like to just work that out with, Mr. Pelican.
Which one was that? I'm sorry.
9.4. And that's it, everything else is good.
and let me ask one basic question based on what you're saying, you're agreeing with it. Stangle Road, as it comes through this property, is currently a public right of way. We talked about a little bit on the adjoining property where the right of way is over, and you're gonna have to vacate it and what you're gonna do.
It's sometimes private, sometimes public, sometimes easement.
If the borough takes, and we could ask Mr. Campion to confirm this, but the borough takes care of the whole road, it is a public road. Through the whole property. Your survey indicates some elements are quote private, some are public. But the reality is the borough maintains the whole road.
Right.
So I think it's kind of a critical component to understand what elements that are public, are you gonna convert to a private scenario? What entities of government or levels of government have to approve that? And in the long run, if whatever conversion occurs, just what's gonna be the jurisdictional limits of the borough? They're gonna take care of Stangle Road down to the brewery and then nothing beyond that point? Is the homeowners gonna take, it's kind of a critical, kind of a threat, kind of a critical threshold issue.
Accommodate it. If the municipality wants to have total control over maintaining Stangle, even on the homeowners association property, that's something that'll be worked out in the agreement between the HOA and the borough.
Well, I think this is the time to work out these details. I don't know if we should leave that for. Some entity.
Well, and I don't know if the board can speak for the.
No, but we have to define what the issue is. We have to define what the existing condition is, define what the issue is, and if it's a matter that has to go back to the council for
Well, the-
decision, then that would have to be a condition of
The
any action.
agreement states that they are creating a HOA to maintain the roads. That's what the agreement states.
And if there's a representation to the board and there's a condition based on that representation, and for some reason it does not come to fruition with the mayor and council, then they need relief from the condition. And that's all.
Well, it's actually, it's already in our redevelopment.
Yes.
Yes.
That says that you guys will work with the borough to do.
We're going to provide easements to the borough's satisfaction. And with respect to maintaining the property, we're going to maintain all of our property. Just to be very clear for the record, though, the HOA cannot maintain anything off of the HOA's property, so the borough would have to continue to be liable for the maintenance of anything outside of this development, so.
So I guess that's Bob's question, which is where are the limits of what? Is there? When we put a plan together to show what's, like, if that's the representation, HOA takes care of its portion, borough continues to take care of its pursuant to the redevelopment agreement. And easements that are gonna be submitted, can we have a plan that shows what's what and what those?
I think you really need a plan. There's a lot of issues like that in our report about clarifying certain things. But if the borough clearly owns and takes care, owns right away, down to the Lone Eagle. And they take care of the rest of the road all the way out to Route 12. If the homeowners here are only gonna take care of the segment of Stangle Road in the middle, that kind of raises the question. I mean, it's kind of a very practical issue that has to be done. How are they gonna figure it? So, and if there are, and we've determined that there are public rights of way. If we've determined there are public rights of way that go through the property, they're gonna need, from a title standpoint, they're gonna need to have those vacated if the borough agrees to vacate, so.
That's the option, and I think we both communicate. Have to talk to our attorneys and to, first superintendent of public works for the best recommendation offline.
I mean, I guess what we. Again, if that's going to be the understanding, the applicant can always then work with the borough to come to an understanding as per the redevelopment agreement, and if they're unable to reach one. Yeah, and they can come back and, I mean, really, it's not this board's issue. Really, at the end of the day.
It's not.
I mean, I understand Bob's point, and I think he's right, that it has to be addressed, and the applicant has to make sure that there is some clear demarcation and understanding as to how it's gonna happen. But you know, that part really isn't for the board. We just need to make sure that the issue is addressed at some point in time and that the issue is resolved.
Agreed.
I want my LSRP on the phone, but I put him on speaker and tell him to make the testimony. How about if he came on here?
As long as I see him in person.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's gotta be on
If he comes
camera.
in, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
He takes his testimony by Zoom.
what's the link?
Let me go to the
Or if
borough
you- if you have his-
Yeah.
If you have his
I have his
email,
email.
Eileen can probably
Yeah.
send.
All right. Tom. I'm gonna send you a link right now. You have to come in on the, what is it? Teams or Zoom?
It's
Can you take a call outside?
All right, I gotta skip an email. Yeah, I'll send it to your email, right?
You understand that you go outside.
Okay, let me write it down.
Oh, you
Hold
wanna
on.
do that for traffic?
Yeah, you. Okay, that's all right. Let me step outside. Okay.
You can try your client a little bit, please. We're trying to have a public hearing.
I have a letter from Mr. Troutman, dated November 22nd. There are some corrections that he noted that I need to make on the parking tabulations because of how the project evolved from 2 car garage to 4 car garages. And there are a number of comments, for example, six.
Can you just get a little closer to the microphone? So I'm sorry.
Comments 6 through 11 request additional changes to the plans, comments, sidewalk or signage, et cetera, labels.
I sort of
We agree
pay
to all of
attention
that.
to what they're doing, so.
So I will leave comment 1, 2, 3 to the traffic engineer to speak to. Comments 4 and 5 are rhetorical information for the board. And as I said, comments 6 through 11, we agree to. And then comment 12 will be discussed by the traffic engineer.
I might ask the traffic engineer one question, before he starts on his list. With the passage of the always stop at Stengel last night by the council. Do you have to look at anything over? Is that okay? Like with the traffic that'll be coming in from the site to Mine Street? Does that change anything for you?
It does not.
Okay.
The Stangle and mine is still good. And I did request a 4-way stop in this site
Okay,
at Forge and Stangle,
Okay.
which I think they've agreed to.
okay.
Yes.
And then, Mike, just in item 5, the last bullet point, can you comply with that?
Oh, that's the one we discussed way back in the beginning. Oh, wait, sorry. I was giving the less on the first page. The less on the second page.
On page 3,
Oh, some curve radius, of course.
okay,
Number 11,
that was,
5 last bullet point.
5 got it.
And I should say 11, which deals with the DOT permit. I'm gonna leave that along with 12 to the traffic engineer.
Okay.
Sure. Hold on one second.
sorry. Yeah. Just, please the board, we did receive a letter from one of our neighbors asking for certain changes. We've had some discussions. Some of the changes will require relocating one of the townhomes. We'd like to show you what's proposed there. We're more than willing to do it to accommodate the neighbor. A couple other things that they asked for that we'll put on the record, just to mollify their concerns, hopefully. But because it does require us moving one townhome, we'd like to share with you what that proposal is.
One townhome or one townhome group?
One town, one home.
So. What I'm gonna share now is an exhibit that we prepared just to show the neighbor for the brewery property. They did approach us after the hearing 2 weeks ago with a concern about stormwater flowing towards their property now. So I don't get yelled at by Kara. This can just be called a grading exhibit for the brewery.
Okay, and that'll be A5.
So what we show on the right side here is what the current plan depicts. And that shows that the last townhouse, just south of the brewery, has a yard area of approximately 20 feet wide by about 50 feet long. 1,000 square feet or 0.02 acres. That lawn area does pitch towards the fence that we are proposing because the brewery people and brewery property had secured a 10-foot easement from the owner of this property and expanded that area with a patio. So there's a slight angle to the contour that we have here that showed that the water that would head towards them would sort of hit the edge of the sidewalk of their patio and flow to the back or to the east, to the front towards Snaggle Road. What we are proposing or offered to them was, okay, I'll regrade the area, tighten up the contours closer to the house, the proposed home, and put in a swale that definitively directs the water backwards and forward. Again, we're talking about a piece of grass that is only 20 by 50. However, the adjacent people did ask, and they sent a letter to I believe the mayor and the professionals today, asking for us to do something different. So if I go back now to the concept plan and share the concept plan. So it's this same 5 dwelling unit building that we're showing that is just south of the Lone Eagle Brewery right here. And there is the fence that we're showing it as green. I believe there is now a patio constructed on that area. But what we would do is take this last townhouse off of here. And therefore, instead of having 20 feet, 19.87 between the fence and the edge of our proposed building, we'll have 40 feet. And this one townhouse, we can move down and make this 6-unit building a 7-unit building that is down closer to Route 12. There is just enough room to push the top up a little bit, push the bottom down a little bit, and fit in 1 extra unit. So there will be the same exact number of units. It won't affect anything other than we'll be providing an extra 20 feet of buffer between the property line and of course the 10-foot easement where the fence is proposed for their patio and our closest residential dwelling.
So 2 other items that property owner requested that we're willing to comply with if the board so sees fit is a specific type of fence we're more than willing to accommodate. And they've asked for additional landscape buffering on their side of the fence. Their letter actually requested landscape buffering on both, but our point was we're happy with the fence on our side. So we would be willing to provide additional buffering and work with the township's professionals on a future plan iteration to show that.
Beth, does that change, mean this is no longer consistent with the concept plan that was approved in the redevelopment plan?
So it is a change from the concept plan from a consistency perspective. I think what the board needs to consider is whether or not it still remains substantially consistent, or if you think that this deviation triggers that type of relief from the redevelopment plan. And there are some other deviations, one of the other changes that they had acknowledged is the lack of a wet basin or retention basin at that Route 12 area. And so I would put this in the same category. I think it's a pretty minor amendment. I don't think that this townhouse location change alone would trigger a finding of inconsistency with the redevelopment plan. But I do think that's part of what the board's charges as it reviews the site plan application, based on what we talked about tonight and everything that will come, whether or not the site plan and whether it remains consistent with the concept plan, given the changes.
The other question is, the fence, there's still gonna be a fence, I heard that correctly?
Yeah, just the style of fence.
Because ABC regulations require fenced off areas for consumption and things like that. This is, your testimony is that this will be consistent with what the property owner needs to make that work.
Yes.
Can I say, we have one that requested a
We have-
specific type of fence.
Yeah, okay, thank you, that's it.
Well, while we're talking about these units that are so close to the commercial district, one of the things I'd like to see put in to this is that the deeds to all these units acknowledges that they abut an active, vibrant commercial district. So everybody knows what they're buying into. Nobody calls the police at 11 o'clock at night and says people are screaming. I don't think it's a big deal, George.
No, it's not at all. In fact, that's
No,
exactly
Mayor,
the kind of things that have to be disclosed in the offering memorandum that all buyers.
And I think that they also need to be aware in the deed that it's along an active railroad track, with the.
Oh, yeah.
If
That's
it's
gonna be in the
into a
civil.
railroad track.
Yeah.
To also put that in the deed.
Yep. 100%.
So everybody knows what they're buying into.
Just a very clear point of clarification, it would not be in the deed, Mayor. We have to, the ultimate developer, D.R. Horton, who's gonna be selling these homes, will have to provide a public offering statement.
That's
to all
fine,
of them.
listen, the HOA public offering statement, I don't have a problem with that, as long as it's disclosed. And people know what they're, up to them to read it and sign it, and have their attorney say to them, did you read it, do you understand what's in it?
100%.
Because when they call here saying, I didn't know there was a coal burning engine blowing smoke and my can, my windows open. I'm gonna be the one saying, like, close your windows and get your damn out.
So I do apologize again for the confusion a little earlier and the interruption while we were conducting the meeting, but I do have our LSRP is on Zoom. Tom Myers, he's in the waiting room.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman, don't we usually ask for questions of each witness as they go? We should allow for public questions of the engineer and planner before we start bringing in other witnesses.
Are you done?
Well, I will be done with Mr. Pucci for questions and to your point, I agree that that's the appropriate measure, but we are trying to get past the completeness issue that Mr. Pucci's testimony relies upon, so I don't know, I'll yield to whatever the board wants to do.
In the question that was raised by Mr. Clerico, reiterating the point that was discussed 2 weeks ago. So we're kind of tying that all together, but whatever the board's wishes are for protocol, we'll follow.
I just want to make sure that before your engineer is
I'm not
done, that the public has the opportunity to ask questions of this witness on the testimony given.
100%, and I think the LSRP's testimony is gonna be very limited to a narrow issue.
So where is he?
Do you want me to promote him as a panelist then, or is that, or are we taking public comments or questions?
Tom Myers.
Yeah, he's in 2 different places, so I don't.
Even more about the rest of it.
I promoted both.
Do we have time for public comment while we're waiting?
I think he's coming in now.
We're not done with testimony.
Oh, there he is.
Thomas, we need you to have your camera on.
Yeah. Take yourself off mute.
I think he's on mute.
Put this tie jacket and guy on.
You want mute?
He's on mute.
He can unmute himself, he's
He's-
promoted as a panelist, that's under his authority. I can't
Tom, we need
do
you on
everything.
camera as well. Probably put by buildings there. Tom, can you hear us?
Volume may be down, you may not hear us.
All right, thank you for the effort. We'll see if that works out later, but I think it probably makes sense to open up the public for comments.
Take it too many
Questions.
Questions, excuse me.
Or?
That's.
Anybody else on Zoom, board members on Zoom have questions?
I had a quick question, just about the bioretention basin on the west side of Stongle. Just would it be of a benefit to the property and residents of Village Court? Would that help with any flooding that occurs there? Just a curious question.
Has no bearing on Village Court because they are to the west of this. Considering.
Well, they're above that parking structure, so the that street above, sorry, are
Here.
like their backyards.
For storage area.
Your plan is not showing.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, sorry. Not sharing, oops. Now we're back. So the Stangle Road bioretention system is over here above Forge by the Veterans.
Sorry, yeah, I'm sorry. I meant the one far, that's the compensation.
not a
Yeah,
bio-
sorry, thank you. That one, yes.
Compensatory storage area. It should have, if anything, a slight benefit. And the reason I say that is because we were required by DEP to justify whatever fill that was placed, as I said, over here for these residential homes in the extension of Forge Road. We have to compensate with an equivalent area of storage so that the floodwaters of Walnut Brook have the same area to go to. We believe we exceeded it by a little bit, so
Right.
any effect on the Village Court homes would be a slight benefit. There would be no detriment.
Okay. Yeah, there would be no detriment though, right? It would be, if anything, to benefit.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. That was my question.
Can I just speak on this LSRP issue for a second?
Yeah.
We're open to the board's comments.
Yeah, we're gonna do questions of the engineer. Anybody else on Zoom have questions?
I'm open up questions to the public. Oh, okay.
Okay, it's open for any public comments.
Questions of this witness.
Questions. Sorry.
Right, this witness. Yes, you do need to come up and use this microphone between the attorney and the engineer.
Or the one that's for the.
Yeah. Or Jay's.
Or Jay's over there, so the remote folks.
Yeah, because they're probably. gonna
Switch the
answer, but yeah.
microphones?
No, use that one because they're gonna use that one to talk into
Okay.
the answer. They're gonna.
Hello, everybody. I'm Robert Mortera. Usually I'm on that side of the case. Now I'm a lot owner. George has made a proposal.
Address, please.
What?
Address, please.
Okay, Lone Eagle Brewery. I think it's 44. Thank you, guys. Somewhere over there. And I just want to say that we worked out an agreement with George on moving that unit, and us and me and our partners are okay with what he did. So I just want to say we're in agreement with it, and we withdraw our objection to what he was doing.
Do you have any questions, any other questions of the engineer? Good.
Can you take down the plan so we can see our numbers, please?
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Thank you.
Anyone else in the public have questions for the engineer?
Mark Favors, 35 Brown Street,
Mark, you spell your last name?
Pavers.
Thank you.
Alright, so I don't know if they're exactly for the engineer, so I'm not gonna, I'll let you tell me. So the first question is for the water line tie-in. I just want to understand, might be a basic question. How do you ensure that the water going to the other residences around that area is not impacted while you're doing the tie-in? That you're not shutting off water to the others.
So when we do the tie-ins, they're actually done in conjunction with the water utility. The borough water utility, and they're not all gonna be at the same time. And the borough utility will ensure that when we do the connections, they are staggered so that existing service is maintained. And as I said, we're gonna loop the system from east and west of the track. So that's sort of a redundant help as opposed to a detriment.
Okay. Cool, thank you. The other question that I had was around the height of the buildings. I don't know if that's a question for you or not. So in speaking with one of my neighbors, I didn't look at the drawings myself, but in speaking with one of them, the elevation on some of the drawings, and this might have been alluded to in one of the comments, stated, I think 38 feet on the elevation, but the ordinance was for 30. So there was a difference there between, or the agreement had a 30-foot. So.
I believe the minimum height or maximum height rather in the redevelopment plan for the townhouse or the residential units is 40, and we comply.
That the board understands.
We've heard that.
So he's correct. He is correct about the maximum height being 40 feet. One of the items I have in my report is that I'm asking them to confirm the building heights of their, the two existing buildings, the white foundry or the white building on Church Street that was described, as well as the Allied building. In reality, I do expect those items to, or those buildings to be compliant. But I also understand that the townhouses that they're proposing, as well as the multifamily units, all of those are compliant with the 40-foot height requirements. But their architect, when they testify, will be able to put a finer point on that for their testimony.
I'll speak to the neighbor and see if they can come to that. And then the last question that I had was about the offsets. And my understanding originally, and I haven't, been involved in all the conversations or part of all the meetings, is that there was the 25-foot offset from the property line, which I see you comply with for the most part, but the patio area is only 10 foot. So I just want to try to understand so for me, it's 25 feet. I envision 25 feet from the property line is the first time you're impacted by anything to do with the property, the building, patio, what have you. And now it's stating 10 feet to the patio. So I just want to try to get a little bit better understanding of why the change or the difference.
That's the way the redevelopment plan is written. It used to have different language in it, but the way it's written right now and the way it was adopted by council is that the ground floor setback is a 10-foot landscape buffer requirement. And the second floor amenity setback is 25 feet. And I will try and share again the site plans that I used before. I'm looking at sheet 8, which is one of the dimension plans. And I'm not sure where your property is along Brown Street, but I had shown before the area just south of the Brown Street Basin. And I showed how some of the upper story decks, the amenity space would be shortened to 8 feet to comply with that 25. In the case of that, like for example, on this one townhome, and I'll blow it up even more for clarification. There's an 8-foot upper story, and on the ground floor, the 10-foot patio extends about 1 foot into that 25. So there would be basically a 24-foot setback to that ground floor patio. It's not like they're going to be at the 10-foot line, which is the buffer. Although the 10-foot perimeter buffer is 10, or the perimeter buffer is 10 feet, the actual physical location proposed is closer to 24 feet.
Okay, all right, that makes it more clear. Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes it more clear. And then I think this is a question for the LSRP, but I'm going to ask it because I don't know, and you can tell me. Mainly around as you're doing the cleanup of the site. So my house backs up to the site. We have a small child. I know other people have small children as well. So the concern is really about the contamination and containment of the contamination. I don't know how brown sites work. I don't know any of that information, but my concern would be more about contaminants getting into the air, migrating onto our property. Kids are outside playing. How do we ensure that that is not a health risk? And what steps or measures are going to be taken to ensure that that's not a problem? And then what is the verification that those things are actually happening to ensure that we don't have that? So I don't know if that's.
I love the first few words about this not being. And I'm glad that the LSRP is listening, so he can now hear that, and well, hopefully, respond to that after providing the clarification to Mr. Clerical that he asked for. Just procedural, I don't know whether you want to do the LSRP thing or finish
Yes, let's finish
public
with you.
questions.
Finish with you and make sure we've got everybody. So it does sound like it's an LSRP question. Hopefully we'll have him here shortly. But let's finish with you first.
I didn't have anything else. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bob King, Loading Brewing, 44 Stangle Road. Can you give us an understanding of what we can expect from impact? Can we get traffic to our business from Route 12 as well as through off of Mine Street? When that is gonna get all torn up, those buildings torn down, a new road constructed, how long do we expect that development to take place? That's gonna have a serious impact, I think, on customers. Route 12 is a major thoroughfare, and that will impact our business.
I'm now going back to sharing the phasing plan that we used as the exhibit. I think it was, I don't know what Don called it, but it was to show where the loan mod units were scattered throughout the project, and it's just a good way to show you what's going on. So right
Should we
now.
use that as one of the ones?
Yeah, I believe that.
Was it 8-4?
8-4.
For the color.
So right now, as you traverse up from Route 12, the road does curve to the left around, I guess at that point, that's the Timberland building or Shell, whatever. It comes up and kind of tees to the right and then turns left again around the front of the Polo building and then continues up to your brewery. So phase one would just be the green area, the bottom part. So at that time, the upper piece of Stanger Road will remain intact. And while the lower piece does this curve to the left, we will be able to construct this piece, which is off of where we're proposing, where Stanger Road is today, so that we can then have a connection go straight through and they'll phase the construction. Of course, we'll have to work with your police department and make sure that whatever traffic control measures are done, comply with whatever the requirements are. But it's not as if we're just gonna close the road and walk away for a month. We're gonna have this done during construction of, operating hours for whatever you're allowing people to do construction in town, typically 7 to 5. And then we'll try and make sure that there is an open pathway overnight if the construction is gonna take more than one day. Once that realignment is done such that the road no longer comes up, goes over and turns up, but this is now the straight through movement. Then when phase two comes in, again, that'll just be construction through one area and demolition work for pavement. Nothing to do with the LSRP cleanup stuff on the east side, simply just demolition of existing pavement. And that's the kind of work that can be done within one day, even if they have to do half of one side and half the other, just to make sure that there's always maneuverability through here.
Thank you. And I have to ask just one more question, I'm really curious. Can you bring up the concept plan real quick? So where you are going to raise the parking lot for the veterans housing and the housing across the street. Right now, that's good view right there. So during major storms, I've seen that entire parking lot flooded. Several inches to well over a foot. In fact, cars couldn't even travel south on Stangle to get to Route 12. It was so heavily flooded. My observation, there's these little manholes I guess, that are part of the stormwater system. When it backs up, water actually shoots up through those manholes.
I'm not
So
surprised.
I'm curious, I know you said it's a like for like swap, but if
That's
it backs up, it's gonna back up further.
Two different issues.
Go ahead.
The question of the like for like, that deals with the flooding of the flood elevation of Walnut Brook. What you're describing is the fact that the storm sewer system over there is inadequate. And I actually did an exhibit earlier today, just for my own purposes. So I'm gonna stop sharing the concept plan and.
A6?
Now share. This is just a design worksheet, I'll call it,
Alright,
Stangle Road drainage.
We're gonna, alright, we're gonna use it.
Yes. Okay,
Stangle Road drainage.
and this is just, it's an easier way to look at going back and forth between the existing conditions map in my plans and the site plan. And I kind of have both things on the same plan. So what we're speaking about is the brewery is right here. Right now, there are two existing inlets that drain through existing pipes. These pipes are 15 and 18-inch pipes. So they don't have the capacity to handle all the flow going through them. Our proposal is to take the inlet that's at the southeast corner of your property, when we rebuild it as a, B inlet with a B inlet across the street on either side of the newly improved Stangle Road. We have a 30-inch pipe draining the water down. So a much bigger pipe, much more capacity.
How far up does that go? Because I think part of the problem, when it hits to a certain level, what is that, Walnut Brook?
Well,
Walnut Creek fills up, it seems, because it's going that way, right? And when it fills up, it has nowhere else to go.
there are two more problems that are associated with the whole regional drainage, and I'm sure Mr. Campion has heard lots of complaints about them. Going back to the concept plan, as I described earlier on, right now, the flow to the east comes through and it actually drains into the back of a ditch that runs along the south edge of this parking lot just below where we're doing the fill. It then curves in and then drives through the property or flows through the property and underneath Route 12 in a small 36-inch pipe, or some of it might overflow and get down into the big culvert. Most of this flow goes through that 36-inch pipe. Two problems. The existing ditch is clogged. It's a mess. So that needs to be cleaned out. And 36-inch pipe is also partially clogged. So then it needs to be cleaned out. Those are, I guess, existing utility infrastructure projects that can be worked on with the borough and or in conjunction with future development, should there be any of this area. But there's an existing backup problem.
Thanks for bringing that up. So is that gonna be addressed as part of this project?
We are not proposing.
No, it's not I'm asking this folks, this will continue to contribute to the flooding if it's not mitigated. Right?
Our project will not have any negative effect. We'll have a positive effect. It's now there. The regional existing stuff is what's going on.
Thank you.
That's pretty much. That's your pal?
There's a net.
There was one over here. So I believe.
Are there any more questions from public?
Hey, else, everybody okay?
I have, when you brought up the phasing plan for one of the, when you brought up the phasing plan for one of the public questions, I noticed for the first one that the two veterans homes, the multifamily buildings are not in one of the phases.
That's just that's a typo or a drafting error. They are in phase one.
Thank you.
Oh, that's embarrassing.
In terms of the testimony you gave about the maintaining the response to the resident's question about maintaining the access of what is now Stangle Road. According to your plan, there's more than just grading work going on. I mean, you're putting sanitary sewer in there, you're putting storm drainage in there.
Yes.
I think, and to some extent, expansion on what Beth said, think there's gonna need to be a phasing, irrespective of whether that segment you're building stays with the public or doesn't stay with the public. It's currently a public thoroughfare. Unless there's gonna be some official closing of the thoroughfare to allow for the construction of a unit. It's gonna have to be some sort of a more detailed phasing element.
There's gonna definitely be traffic control associated with that.
Well,
As I said,
not saying more than traffic control, just how you're going to install whatever you're going to install, what are you gonna maintain? Irrespective of the issue, who's gonna own whatever it is you're, you know.
The GC would work that out. I mean, I'm sure we're gonna have a pre-construction meeting. And, you know, you're gonna have all the players involved. That's the person who's, I'm not gonna tell the GC how to do his work.
Just for the benefit, normally on something like this, you would have a phasing plan with some specificity as to what's getting built, when and how and whatnot. You could leave it to construction stage, you could leave it to working out details. But you know, as of right now, the plan we have here just shows what the finished product is. And it is, you know, what happens with the finished project on their part of the property, where they're building new infrastructure. The MLU speaks to that, certain infrastructure has to be in before COs can be issued, elements, whatever, but we are dealing with a component of infrastructure here that currently exists, that's in the, I believe it's in the public domain. Again, back to what we said before, whatever rights are there, that if they're gonna be extinguished by the borough, gonna have to be extinguished by the borough. But if this is gonna be maintained, if the segment south of this, out to Route 12 is owned and maintained by the borough, and the segment north of this, from the brewery up, is owned and maintained by the borough, we're gonna have this missing link element in here, where there's no man's land in here that we're gonna have to decide. Again, irrespective of what the ultimate outcome of whether whatever they build is gonna be owned by the public, whether the homeowners are gonna take care of it, whether the borough's gonna take care of it. We do have a contiguous or continuous public thoroughfare through here that at some point during the development of this property is gonna be, for lack of a better word, unless there's a very detailed plan of how that's gonna happen, it's gonna be cut off from public circulation.
I need to make a request to, I'm not sure who, either Beth or Kara or you, but there's been a number of things that have been brought up that the borough needs to consider tonight. If one of you could send me an email outlining them, that I can share with either our redevelopment attorney, or with the president of Borough Council, whoever I need to share it with to get some traction on, you know, what to do, how to respond to, you know, some of these issues, also the ones that King just brought up. That would be helpful, because I'm just, it's getting late and it's past, right, I hate to admit it, it's past my bedtime, and I will never, I just need help getting the focus on it, so I can follow up. Happy to follow up on it.
You know, if I may, if it helps assuage some of the concern, I mean, we can stipulate that traffic will never be cut off. There will always be route fare maintained, one way or another. We just don't know that's generally up to the general contractor.
It's a great idea, especially for emergency vehicles. You know, if for whatever you can't get access on Main Street, you know, to be able to get access a different way in. But, you know, I think we're gonna do it.
Yeah, again, I don't know that I can stipulate right now how that would be
That's
done,
fair.
but we can stipulate that we will never foreclose traffic flow.
Well, one of the things, Mayor, Beth and I were just talking, and, you know, Bob and Jay will have input as well. We're learning a lot from the new hotel project, as to what we might want construction meeting wise and everything else, so I think that's something that we want to put in.
Really hard lessons there.
But I mean, it's a good thing, because it'll certainly help this project move along in a more organized.
I'm
better
delighted,
fashion,
I'm
so.
delighted there's like 20 people in this audience and we didn't have to move to the historic courthouse for a hearing on a redevelopment project. It's like, it's such a lot of hours work went into this plan.
Yeah.
So.
So we'll certainly keep that in mind and make sure.
Sorry, to interrupt. I had a follow-up question, but I didn't know if that was still available. Comment.
Sure. The public hearing is open.
The follow-up question was actually about the stormwater drainage. So as I said before, I'm on Brown Street. So the question was, and maybe you can help me understand, is for stormwater drainage going away from Brown Street. So anything that would currently be coming into Brown Street, we get a lot of water into backyards and stuff comes up through the basement, et cetera. So my hope would be that the work that you're doing would help to alleviate that. But what I'm hearing is, I guess, two questions. One, can you confirm that? And then maybe show me the drawing briefly that shows the elevations and how that would work. But the second thing is, if it's gonna be into that basin, then what the comment was around the clogged piping that exists today, would that also impact any kind of drainage work that you're doing that would improve Brown Street? So that the board aware of that. Let me know if there's anything I need to clarify.
I think I got it, but I'll try and explain, and if I deviate from what you're asking, let me know.
Okay.
So now going back to sharing my screen and looking at the site plan set that I had prepared, I'm gonna find the right sheet to show you, and then I'll tell Ms. Kaczynski what sheet it is, so I don't get in trouble. Okay, now where is your home? Is it below the park, closer to Route 12? Okay,
Closer to 12, yeah.
so I just know where to look.
Yep.
So I'm looking now at sheet 12, which is one of the preliminary and final site plans. And just blowing this up a little bit. So we have the bioretention system shown in this area here. And then what we're doing is we're proposing inlets along the backyards of the townhouse and the open space property between where we previously described it, 24 to the ground floor. A series of inlets down here that continue to the south, and that flow will continue onto the next sheet, which is now sheet 13 of that same set. And those inlets collect the flow from the backyard areas, especially from your backyard areas. As you can see, these lines here, they all sort of curve, and they're elevation lines, and that means that this line here is higher than that line there, is higher than that line there. Everything sort of flows down towards these inlets. That's why I said the Route 12 bioretention system will accept flow from a lot of the backyard areas here. And these inlets will convey that water into this bioretention system and then hold it and release it through a piping network that then continues. And going back to sheet 12, that piping network will then cross underneath the train tracks. And as I said before, the existing pipe under the train tracks is grotesquely undersized, and we're replacing with adequate sized piping to convey the water off of the Brown Street area. Separate from that, and now go over to the site plan sheet 14 on the west side. What happens now is, as I described in an earlier question from the gentleman from the brewery, the piping in this area that takes flow today to the south is also undersized, and we're putting in adequate sized piping to convey that to the ditch that is now at the bottom of this parking lot. And that ditch is the one that will be need to be cleaned at some point, as well as what I'd shown in the concept plan, which is the 36-inch crossing pipe underneath Route 12.
So does the drainage for the Brown Street side all eventually land in that same clogged pipe area?
Yes.
Okay. That's just the piece. So then that's kind of, I have the same question as you, is from a township perspective, when does that get cleared out? Because otherwise it sounds like we'll still have a problem.
We'll add that to the list of green documents.
Okay.
Thanks.
The only other, just as you mentioned, one other thing, the park, the retention area behind the park, is that primarily serving the properties that are north of the park? Or is that also serving part of the properties that are south of the park?
It's only serving properties, well, mostly north, but and really to the east.
North and east. Okay.
Yeah, there's a low point just above the park, or in the upper end of the park.
Okay.
In Brown Street, and that's where the water coming down, I think it's Grant maybe.
Yeah.
As well as the homes between Grant and up to Church and east of Brown. They all come to that low point and flood. None of the site goes there. It's all lands east of us, and that is being taken into that basin that we're building behind the park.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Is there anybody else in the public? Any questions? Professional?
I just reiterated what I kind of said in our report. There's a lot of open details here that at some point have to get worked out. We're obviously not gonna work them out at a public hearing, but there's a lot of undotted i's and uncrossed t's. And some questions. We heard some stuff tonight that might require some other revisions to the plan. You know, I outlined in our report what we felt the issues were. Some of the issues you dispensed with tonight, like the issue of the sidewalk, you know, behind the cars and things of that ilk. But there's still a lot of other issues here. At some point, probably presumably the next meeting, we'll hear from the LSRP. That's one of the big open questions about the board's ability, as I outlined in the report, to approve a plan that's compliant with stormwater regulations without having the benefit of the data that lets you reach that conclusion. That's
Okay. It's 10:30, so a little bit beyond. I think that we would like to do, well, the attorney's now with you. Yeah,
What do you?
let's just go. We would probably like to stop for tonight.
Oh, it's time for midnight?
No.
No, you don't want.
Gotta go to work, just like everybody else.
I do, we came close. I would love the opportunity to complete, but I understand if that's the board's position.
And we're gonna be on next week anyway. They're gonna be on the agenda.
Yeah,
next meeting?
they could be on the agenda. I mean, it's,
What's on the agenda right now?
right now it's just resolutions and we have the continuation of the Democratic, headquarters, yeah.
Have they confirmed that?
Yeah, yes. Well, we
I know
made,
we carried it.
we
yes.
carried it. They are waiting for a result of an Oprah request.
Correct, that's why I wanted to make sure that they had that.
I did send something to their attorney today,
Oh, you
and
did?
that's what they were still waiting for, the return of that Oprah request, but that was, I don't know.
Our clerk is out of area right now.
I'll make a note to reach out to him too.
Okay. But, yeah, that's the only other item on the agenda, so they, you know, certainly would be room for. I would imagine,
Will we be on first then? Because
well, they were also carrying, so.
And they're gonna conclude, and they're more than halfway through, they're gonna conclude. They're not, we don't know for sure it will conclude. Especially if your LSRP can give us a picture of himself.
he's driving to his office now, so I do, because he didn't have a camera.
Oh.
He said it was an 8-minute drive. That was
10 minutes ago.
10 minutes ago.
So,
He does seem to be.
so, can we make the announcement that it's gonna be carried to the 17th, there won't be any further notice?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're okay, your people are okay?
Yeah, they have to.
Alright, so the application of HBC Liberty Village of Renewal LLC will be carried to the December 17, 2024 regular meeting, same time, 7 p.m. No further notice will be provided.
Please have the professionals, talk to our professional, maybe we can be efficient.
I think we're pretty close. I mean, I do think we're gonna.
There he is.
Next time. If you forward with adult, I know where 1 minute past was Mr. Myers did make his office. I'd love to.
That clock is actually off, it's 10:40.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Basically, with Mr. Clarico's comments and memo, we agreed, you know, resolution will do everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys, sorry. Yeah, that's just-
I was just, not on the record, but someone was saying, you know, be more efficient.
I think we're trying to pretty about Mr. Myers.
Oh, him?
Yeah, it'll be easier now, I think, exactly.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
You, very, a lot more comfortable.
Thomas, they're breaking. Thank you for the drive, I'm sorry, they're not gonna take any more next month.
So. Oh.
Oh, wait, hold on. Yes.
Well, I can, I mean, it's easy now, but that's like, you know, there you go. I used to have one, but it this year, like.
She said something. She said something to him and he went, oh, everybody said.
Alright, let's continue this.
Outside.
I say, yeah, I guess I have never used a gavel really.
Go, we'll move on.
Please.
Next meeting's 17th, and as we know, we're going to be having these folks back to be ready to continue with their. Public hearing for the Kern County Democratic Committee.
Right, and then we will also have resolutions for 110 Main Street, 100 T, and the Spice Factory.
We'll have it for.
I will not have the-
I got four public hearings on the other side of the table next week.
But you only have one municipality to care about.
Right.
Just to maintain the record.
Exactly.
I just don't like things to get lost.
I will try, I will do my very best. I mean, to be fair, 110 is done. That just never made it here.
Correct.
Spice Factory, can follow Chick-fil-A, so that should be fairly simple. And 100 T should be fairly simple.
Need to get them done.
I will certainly do my absolute very best.
There were two bills that were very late.
Move to audit the bills.
Second.
Thank you.
Just said-
Yeah, they were separate. Yes, and so.
I look at it.
Do we, sorry, I think Mr. Myers is here. Should we say bye to him? I don't know. I don't think he needs to be here anymore, does he? Or
George can call him and thank him for driving to.
You can remove him.
His, yeah, that's been continued, Mr. Myers.
What a
This
weird.
can- oh,
Did you want me to leave then?
It's over there.
Yes, sir. There you are.
Safe travel.
Been removed. Yes, bills, Mr. Dashna,
Yes.
Ms. Swingle,
Yes.
Mayor Carroll, Massaro,
Yes.
Campion. Yeah, no, Mr. Hill.
Yes.
Ms. Weitzman,
yes.
Eckel,
Yes.
Mr. Sherwood.
Yes.
You. Executive session,
No, no,
No.
executive session.
motion to adjourn.
So move.
I will be there.
Move it.
And Massaro, second,
Yes.
and.
Aye.
And
You wanna make sure.
Going down.
Yes, it is.